Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Coming up today, an exclusive interview with a family friend who was assaulted in New York City. Two young women who were assaulted, actually. And amazingly, there is a happy ending to this story thanks to the power of social media and X and all of you. And we'll tell you about it. Plus, the Kelly's Court on Luigi Mangione, January 6th, and those pipe bombs, and more. But we begin today with some political news. The Republican who was running for the seat in Tennessee being vacated by a Republican did manage to pull it out in the special election yesterday in Tennessee. But it was close. It was closer than the Republicans would have liked. Last count I saw in the New York Times was around 9 points between the GOP candidate and the weird Democrat who cried outside of the governor's office. It should have been 22 points. That's what Trump won that district by. And it's a solidly red district. So why are the Republicans only winning it by 9 points, especially since the Democrat candidate was a complete loon? That's a problem. I mean, the Republicans can just pretend that they don't have any problems. That's fine. You can do that. If you want to sit here for the next 11 months and say, this is all your haters, okay, we'll see how that turns out for you in November. Or you could actually get honest about why you're having these problems and change some things and then possibly win the midterm elections. It's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to lose. Look what Joe Biden did. You know, yes, the Republicans took, they did okay, but there was no big red wave. Remember that a couple of years ago? You could limit the losses. Will they try? Will they try to figure it out? What's causing this? We'll talk about it. Joining me now on this and much, much more is Chamath Palihapitiya. He is a co-host of the All In podcast and CEO of Social Capital. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X.
We talk a lot about personal responsibility on this show. Well, here's one aspect that's really important: your health. And I'm not talking about following whatever the experts recommend. I'm talking about real, data-driven decisions based on your body's actual numbers. We demand transparency in government, but most of us have no idea what's happening inside of our own bodies, never mind inside of D.C. Disease can develop silently for years before symptoms appear. By then, you're playing catch-up with expensive treatments instead of preventing problems when they're cheap and easy to fix. Well, I want to tell you about Gevity. They are revolutionizing preventative care with something radically different: 100-plus blood markers tested at your home. Personalized supplement packs shipped directly to you based on your deficiencies. Biannual retesting to track progress, plus ongoing virtual consultations on your schedule. This is healthcare independence. And you get 20% off at gogevity.com/Megyn with code Megyn when you check out. That's gogeviti.com/Megyn, because no one should control your health decisions but you.
Chamath, welcome back.
Hi, Megyn. How are you?
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Let's start there because, our mutual friend, your close friend, David Sachs, is in the administration. I know a lot of folks in the administration. And this thing in Tennessee is a bit of a rattler. Trump won it by 22. They only won it last night by 10. The Democrat is a nutcase. Excuse me. Yes, they put a bunch of money into the race, the Dems, but so do the Republicans. So what's happening here? Like if you actually got the audience with Trump and he said, what should I do to make sure it's not a bloodbath for Republicans in November? What would you tell him?
I think the plan is actually pretty straightforward to diagnose, but it's complicated to fix. So just to set some context, when I was at the White House, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw some data that had been vetted and that was about to be shared with the president. Now I think it's been widely shared, which is that under Joe Biden, I think that the average American family lost about $3,000 of purchasing power. And the reason they lost that was in large part because of inflation and runaway costs and, the cost of practical, useful things that they need for their life: electricity, healthcare, and childcare. So the Trump administration starts from a $3,000 hole. Now, what they've been able to do in 11 months is that they've earned back $1,000, which is a third of where they are. I think the The problem, though, is that they will need to find the other 2,000. And it's not their fault because, again, they inherit where they started from. But I think the perception that people have is just that negative $2,000. So if I had to diagnose an answer, I think it's about breaking down the population that's voting into three cohorts. Cohort number one are people that are mostly retired. I think that their priority is going to be mostly around healthcare. Then there's cohort number two, which are middle-aged, middle-income families. I think their huge sensitivity is general cost of living. And then I think what people like Mamdani uncovered, which I think the Republicans should embrace, is for young people, the huge hot button question is around student loans and debt load and on-ramping into the United States economy with a decent starting job and salary. So I think you have to have programs that touch each of these three areas. And that is probably the path forward where you can earn back the 2,000, show that you've basically closed this hole that Biden created, and then ideally you get out of that hole so that you're now gross net positive, which would be a huge economic win for them.
Now, of those voting blocks, the one that is most likely to actually show up on election day is the older group. If history's any, excuse me, I've got my Ludens, I've got all my tools here. I'm coming off of a rough few days.
I got you.
In any event, the older people are the ones who vote, but also people who are economically motivated will vote. I mean, we did see a higher turnout of the young people last time around, in large part thanks to our friend Charlie. So where do you focus on? I mean, truly, like if you're just talking like brass tacks, November's coming. We've got to get people motivated to vote Republican or we're going to lose the House. We're going to have nonstop impeachments and investigations. The Trump agenda will be stymied. Where do you go?
I mean, I can brainstorm with you. These are all kind of like hypotheticals, but I think the hypotheticals are kind of interesting because it starts to make the point you're making. So
me too.
I think if you look at older folks, the biggest cost that they bear is the uncertainty and the actual lived cost of medical expenses as they get older. Because most of them, for better or for worse, have structural housing. They've either owned a home or have been renting something for a long enough period of time where that issue is less of an issue for them per se. We all talk about how boomers sort of were buying homes in the 80s and 70s and early 90s, and everybody else now is sort of on the sidelines, frozen out. So if it's around medical care, we heard yesterday in the cabinet meeting, Bobby Kennedy say something really interesting, which is starting in 2026, you will not allow for certain procedures to have to go through prior auth, which is this crazy scheme that the insurance companies use to essentially slow down approvals. They do that so that they can make more money in the short term before they have to pay out claims. But the lived experience for older Americans is when you need a procedure, you're kind of waiting around, hand-wringing, wondering why the insurance you're paying into isn't approving a legitimate medical procedure. So if you look at that narrow issue and expand the scope, the interesting thing would be to figure out how can we make the healthcare rails in America more frictionless? How do you make prior auth much easier to do across a wide variety of procedures, but also maybe we should look at medications? How do we think about out-of-pocket costs in Medicare and Medicaid? Could those be subsidized in some way with sources of funds that are neutral to the government, meaning they don't come out of the general fund? There's some very clever financial things that one can do there that rely heavily on private corporations and the money that they're already making. So that's one practical issue. How do you specifically, narrowly lower healthcare costs for older voters? But that consolidates the block of people, as you said, that are going to come no matter what. I think if you're going to go after homes and middle-aged folks, you have to look at utility costs, food costs, and electricity costs, and you have to find a way. And there are, by the way, very clever things that one can do, again, that don't require the general fund or treasury. So one example of this is that if you had a large group of corporations come together, they can directly use the big, beautiful bill language around things like batteries and smart thermometers. And you can go and implement these things into a home, help reduce the cost of electricity, in some cases upwards of 50 or 60%. And what you get is actually a rebate on the taxes you would otherwise pay. That at scale, I think, has a huge impact on CPI and could activate, the 35 to 55-year-old voter who's, in a household, family of four type thing. But I go back to this other thing. This younger cohort was activated by these programs that are, they're regressive, but they're masked as like equity. And I think the most important thing that they care about is what is the long-term solution for all of the student debt that they're signing up for, because the jobs that they get afterwards make absolutely no sense and do not generate anywhere near the revenue relative to the cost that they undertake. So those would be the...
We're not doing anything about college tuition. Nothing. We just keep increasing the amount that they can borrow. So then they do borrow that because the universities increase their tuition immediately, accordingly. And the students are left with this enormous bill that cannot be paid off any sooner than 30 years with jobs that don't justify that sort of investment.
It'll never be paid off. And look, look, think about a house, right? You take on a multi-$100,000 mortgage in a house. Most people don't also pay off their mortgages. What they're able to do is rise and participate in the appreciation of the home and then close the mortgage out when they sell the home, right? The overwhelming majority of people get the capital appreciation of this huge loan that is a liability on their balance sheet. But if you look at student debt, those loans are of the same order of magnitude as a home mortgage, but they don't appreciate in value in any way. They don't accrue value to you in any way. And they're an albatross that you can't even discharge in a bankruptcy. So I think the thing that we have to seriously consider now is, at a minimum, do we stop federally underwriting all loans in an equal way? It's doesn't make any logical sense that somebody chasing an 8-year PhD in art history has the same economic opportunities as somebody chasing a 4-year degree in biochemistry. The latter has a lot more practical applications, yet when we, the United States people, underwrite that loan so that it can be sold into Wall Street, we view them the same. So then what happens is Harvard is just as incentivized as to push that person into a, they go to that person and say, Megyn, I think you should get an undergrad in biochemistry. You're like, no, I really like art history. They're like, well, what about this PhD? That can't happen anymore. You have to be able to differentiate these things and understand the downstream economic value. And if you want to study art history, maybe the right thing for most people is to learn by yourself or in a community college class while you are working, because you appreciate that underwriting a $300,000 degree for that thing doesn't make any sense economically. And we don't have that conversation in the United States, but I think we have to.
No, because it's all federal loans. I mean, if there were private lenders making a case-by-case decision, we would factor earning ability in, but we don't. The government just gives it. And I lived this firsthand too. Even when I was in law school, they raised the amount that you could get from the government on the tuition loans. And sure enough, and I was thinking, oh, great, I'll actually be able to get some that will go toward my cost of living.
Well, can I give you
not just tuition? I'll actually be able to pay for my own apartment without having to work all these hours on top of my law school. And no, I couldn't, because the law school just raised the tuition exactly the amount that the government raised the loan amount. So it all goes to the university. Everybody's experiencing this.
Can I give you an example that underscores this even more? The best example of why there is sanity in the private markets. Now you've given me what you had. Excuse me.
Oh, no. Or the transom.
No, you know what? What it is in Thanksgiving. All that happens is we all spend time at home. We all just get sick. I have 5 kids. 3 of them were laid out all Thanksgiving. My wife and I were just trying to duck bullets the whole time. It's
a miracle.
I'd rather be at work.
You think about like how easy it is to infect your family, because like every doorknob you touch in your home, the refrigerator, the remote control, you're just like this petri dish. Although I will tell you, Chamath, Doug and I, we had a very funny exchange this morning. I don't know if you're like this, but whenever I get sick, I'm sitting here like a walking ball of germs. I'm like coughing, I'm blowing my nose, my eyes are running. And Doug's like, I feel something in my throat. There's a tickle. I have a tickle. We have to spend 10 minutes on the tickle in his throat. We've spent zero on what's happening to me right now at this second. Like men,
you're a woman. You're a woman. You're strong. Men are weak, and we need to be coddled when we get sick. This is a rule. It's just
it's true. It really is true. Men are physically stronger, but they are mentally weaker when it comes to the thought or experience of illness. This is a fact. This is why we have the babies God knew.
I have an incredibly funny but sad story about this. So during Thanksgiving, we go on Black Friday to a mall here in Silicon Valley, and 2 of my kids are sick and my wife is sick. And in the middle of this thing, there was like a shooting, which never happens where we are. And the whole mall goes into lockdown. We're in a store. The people at the store did a wonderful job. They closed all the doors. We were sitting in the dressing room just waiting for everything to clear. And it was clear pretty quickly. It was just an isolated event. But in any event, in the whole thing, I look at my wife and my kids who are sick, and I'm like, are you guys okay? They're like this. And they're like, are you okay? I had nothing wrong. And I was just a puddle. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I think I have COVID plus the flu plus the avian flu. I don't know what's happening. I'm ready to like just completely, it was so sad. Okay. Anyway, so going back to what I was going to say to you before.
Yeah. Keep going.
The best example of where there's rationality when the private market prices something versus the public market is in mortgages. So when you buy a home and you want to get either the insurance or the mortgage itself, one of the things that we've been told about for years is there's this threat of climate change. And climate change could meaningfully impact sea levels. They could impact the weather. They could impact extreme weather events. Well, you know who has the best incentive to understand whether those claims will be true in a dispassionate way? It's banks. And the reason is it's the bank's money that's being used to buy a home. And what's so interesting about that is that forget all of the rhetoric, all of the emotional Sturm und Drang around climate change. If you actually just looked at how the banks priced risk over these last 20 years, what the financial direction would tell you was that climate change was something that could theoretically be important, but not much of a thing. And that was the actual financial underwriting. This is just an example to show you that when you have these important philosophical issues of society, sometimes the clarity and the truth can be found through unemotional financial underwriting. It's not true for all things, but if you gave these educational degrees into the hands of institutions that would have to pay for it, you would very quickly see them figure out what the ability for these kids would be to pay it, and also what the ability for these kids would be to enjoy a good life and their version of the American dream. You would get that answer within a year. Yeah. And today, that's not what's happening.
I mean, why can't our government approach it the same way? There was what you said about climate change reminded me of this. It went kind of viral yesterday. Nicole Shanahan, who was RFKJ's running mate and was married to Sergey Brin of Google, co-founder, she has her own podcast now, and she went off a bit on the obsession with climate change among many people in Silicon Valley. It's not just Silicon Valley, but among especially like the rich Silicon Valley wives.
Yeah, the private equity wives, the tech wives.
Take a listen to this. Yeah, she was on with, she was on with Allie Beth Stuckey, but here she is, Nicole Shanahan, SOT 13.
What I don't think many of the tech mafia wives realize is that they were used to set the groundwork for what was called like the reset, what is called generally as like the reset. The tech wife mafias, I believe, were kind of being conscripted in many ways, and their money especially was being conscripted in to set the groundwork for the Great Reset, specifically through a network of NGO advisors, relationship with Hollywood, relationship with Davos, and their own companies, completely blind to everything else that's going on and how their groundwork is being used to then enable these other policies, these great reset policies. And these women find their meaning through their philanthropic work. That was my self-worth, was my philanthropic work, and I really believed in it. Mm-hmm. I really believed that I was giving Black communities a chance to like rise up out of oppression. I really believe that I was helping Indigenous communities rise up out of oppression. The problems of the community have gotten worse. Crime in the community has gotten worse. Mental health in the Native community, the Indigenous community, has gotten worse. The whole model is broken. The whole model makes everybody worse off. Social justice and climate change, it always boils down to those two things, and it gets progressive women 100% of the time.
It's amazing to watch her red pill evolution. Super fun to see her get there. And yes, everything she said is right, Chamath.
I can kind of see where she's coming from. I think that, look, the thing with Silicon Valley that's so incredible is you can believe in yourself and you can start something. And in any other place, what would otherwise take you 50 years, you can accomplish in 5. Now, that's an incredible thing in terms of what you can make for society. But it can be a very destabilizing thing because along with making great things, you can be rewarded in 5 years in a way and at a scale that would have otherwise taken 50 or 75 as well. That second part is very destabilizing. And I think that there are those folks that then have access to these resources that aren't necessarily anchored to something, who want to find purpose. And if you are an elite organization like Davos, and you can create this air around yourself about intellectual and moral superiority, you have the ability to pull these folks in and use them as tools and mechanisms to affect your agenda. I think that's essentially what she's saying. It's a very complicated topic. I sympathize for what a lot of those folks are doing. Some of these tech wives, to be honest, I know. And I think the honest answer is you actually have to start looking at the core of these organizations, like these Davosos, and start asking the question, like, maybe we don't need to have this hyper globalist monocultural view from the top. And I think if you have the courage to say that and say, there's a lot of different viewpoints, and many people acting independently always gets to a better answer than a group of 1,000 people deciding for 8 billion. And I think that's what I
think it's something different. I think it's something else. I think these women tend to be gunners in their own right. Nicole, I think she was getting her degree at Stanford when she met Sergey. Like, she was on her way toward doing her own independent thing. It's the same story for a lot of the women in Silicon Valley. It's the same story for a lot of the women where I am in Connecticut who wind up marrying billionaires or, guys who are on their way to becoming. And I think what these women need is a more active purpose in their lives. I think they wind up married to people who are more successful than they are. So it's like, okay, I'll sacrifice my career and I'll raise children. But the children quickly age out of the range where you need a mom there full time. And so now these women are bored. They have a lot of brain power. It's like Secretariat is sitting there in the pasture during his prime years and he's fucking bored. He needs to run. And like what these women need to do is step away from Davos and these fake charities as like something that's real and helping anybody, and go to work. Like, find the balance that allows you to use your brain power in the way God intended, and also take care of your children if that's what you would like to do. And I totally support that. But I think what happens is they're bored and they find the wrong outlet for it. That's not real work. It's a substitute for it. Because if you have real problems, Chamath, let's say you have an actual bill to pay. Let's take it down to like my mom, who's a nurse. She doesn't have time to think about this bullshit. She is taking care of patients all day. Well, now she's retired. She's 84. But in the day, that those people are never the ones creating society's problems. They're too busy managing their own.
Can I ask you a question?
It's almost like these people need real problems.
So when you say go to work, do you mean like join a corporation and, slot yourself in and try to work yourself up the ladder, or?
Whatever your passion is. I don't know. It could be you start a business, and I don't mean the fake business either. Here's the other problem that I see with these billionaire wives. So many take their husband's money and then they're like, I'm a founder. And they start doling out the husband's money to random groups. And they're like, oh, I'm the founder of that company. I'm one of their chief investors. That's not doing anything. Mm-hmm. That's giving away your husband's money. Pick a fucking job that requires you to use your brain, that requires you to take risk, or hire people, evaluate situations and make judgment calls, fail, succeed, stand up on your own 2 feet, be your own individual person and not just your husband's wife. If you really want an active profession, not every woman does, but for the women who do that instead of doing fake Davos shit that is meaningless. And actually, it's worse than meaningless. It's harmful. It just makes you feel better about your fragile ego, getting it stroked, but you're actually hurting people because you don't understand that world. You don't understand how you're being used and how you're not even important to them. You're just a gateway to your husband's wallet. And on some level, they know it, so it's unfulfilling, but we all pretend it's not the case. Find something honestly, I've said this to some of my friends. I would rather they get a job at the damn supermarket. Just do something that genuinely requires you for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day. Sorry for my rant, but I have strong feelings about it.
Yeah, I think that's it's just an incredibly hard thing to do, I guess, because I think if you put yourself in their shoes, maybe there's a level of stature that they feel like they won't get by doing that. I agree with you. Like, I've been a worker my whole life. I've never.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. I think you have to have a social circle as well that rewards that. It's hard to go back and say, listen, I've decided to do X, Y, Z, and that's less interesting than, say, flying around to Davos and giving away money. That's the thing that those folks are able to do, Megyn, is they're able to market and make you feel very special for doing that. So all I'm saying is we have to find a way of creating a social culture that rewards what you just said. Right. And if we can have.
Well, they should just hang out with me. I'll create the culture around them. They can call me for daily
affirmations,
psych up sessions.
Affirmations, yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to give it to. Like, honestly, when I'm choosing a friend, I would much rather see somebody who's like hustling on her own, whatever it is, even if she's married. I know people like this right now who are married to very rich men who are constantly finding something else intellectually interesting to do, whose children are launched, in college. They don't require them full-time any longer, and who just continue to challenge themselves. Like, this isn't good enough. I'm not actually happy just sitting around here being asked for my investments. I have to find a way to make my own life matter more than that. And when women don't do that at any income level, I really think it leads to bad things. I think it's one of the reasons why women are a huge part of our problem right now. They're a huge part of our societal and political problems because they're voting overwhelmingly Democrat. They buy into the narratives that the left sells them about DEI and racism and the trans stuff and empathy. And they're ruining the country with all this apathy and free time.
What is it exploiting, do you think? Like, how are the Democrats able to exploit that so well, so efficiently?
Because it is. Allie Beth Stuckey is, speaking of her, she wrote the book called Toxic Empathy. And that's exactly what it is. Women have a beautiful thing called empathy in spades, way more than men have. That's the way God intended it. And it's the reason why generally when your kid gets hurt, he wants his mom and not his dad. You're going to stroke him and hug him and brush his hair. Yeah. And the dad's going to be like, you're fine, toughen up. But that gets exploited from K through 12 and beyond by these teachers who use it to make these girls feel like bad people if they don't buy the Democratic Party line. It's from all the DEI messaging and the trans messaging right down to when I was in law school, Chamath, they taught us that the Constitution, this is a liberal line, was a living, breathing document that could evolve over time. I had no idea that was a liberal line. I thought that was real. Right. So it was shoved to me by professors who were trying to exploit my empathy. Like, it lives and breathes in a way that will allow, due process for people in a way that had never been intended, that will allow the Supreme Court to issue a ruling saying you can't legislate sex at a certain level, like in a certain way, whatever. To read rights into there that were never in there, like the right to privacy and the right to have an abortion. That's exploiting your toxic empathy. Anyway, women are genetically prone to it, given evolution, given how we are. And these leftist professors and teachers know it. The systems know it. They take advantage of it.
Do you think it's...
we need a little bit more testosterone running through our veins.
Do you think it's organized, or do you think it's disorganized, but because they all have the same incentive, it all kind of goes in the same direction?
It's the latter. It's taught in a way that, I don't know. It's taught in the same way like my mom knew how to make the meatballs because her mom knew how to make the meatballs. And now it skips a generation because I don't know how to make the meatballs, Chamath, but I think my daughter's on her way. But it's just, you learn it, you see it every week growing up. It's modeled for you by the teachers and the professors you respect. It's assumed that you're going to go along and you're going to get a pat on the head if you do it. And then before you know it, you're doing it. And like in my case with the living, breathing Constitution, that's just one example. But like, you don't know that this is even questionable. Mm-hmm. It's just taught to you by somebody you respect and want to get a good grade from. And it's not so much later before you get exposed to other things and you realize, holy shit, that was a manipulation. So all of this, I just think women can avoid a lot of this. And again, it's not to say everybody needs to work, but women who are bored are dangerous.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, let's keep going. Women who are bored may be interested in this next story because they were manipulated, as were men. We were told during the COVID vaccine and mania, and I believe that you were very attuned to this. I think I don't know why.
I have a lot to say about COVID.
You mentioned Vinay Prasad. Yeah. But an extraordinary piece of reporting has just come out about the COVID vaccine trials and children. Alex Berenson reported this, and I have been reliably informed that we are fine to go with this reporting and that this will be borne out in the coming days. His headline is, and it was an exclusive to him, the FDA may add a strict black box warning on the mRNA COVID shots for kids and teens,
yep.
Millions of whom have already been given this thing, a black box warning. He reports the FDA may soon place this warning on the vaccines to alert physicians and parents of their link to childhood deaths. This is the strictest an agency can impose, this kind of warning. It's generally the last step they take before forcing a manufacturer to stop selling it. They're also considering an alternative, forcing Moderna and Pfizer to stop selling them to kids and teens, period. The potential move, he reports, follows the FDA's report on Friday that its reviewers had found COVID mRNA jabs killed at least 10 children and adolescents, and likely many more. He said they'd asked the FDA for comment, waiting to hear back. My sources tell me this is safe reporting. This actually is under consideration, and we're going to hear a report confirming this within days from the highest levels. This is an outrage, Chamath. This was forced on us. Every school, including my own, they were expelling boys who would not take the vaccine once they hit 16 and so on. This is downright dangerous, and it was sold to us by the Fauci, Biden, Collins administration under Joe Biden that refused to consider actual scientists like Vinay Prasad, who led this. He's leading this within FDA, who was an independent physician at Johns Hopkins at the time. And he was saying this at the time, saying these vaccines are causing deadly myocarditis in kids and teens. And he was scoffed at. He was marginalized like so many others and tried to dismiss as fringe. And now, thank God, under Trump and Marty McCary, he's been elevated to an important position. Your thoughts on it?
COVID is probably the most important historical moment of the last 50 years for the world. And it needs to be understood, I think, in three really important and critical things for the success and the future of the United States. The first is that we did not allow robust thinking and dissenting voices during that period, all the way up to being able to call places like Facebook and places like Twitter and telling them, places like Google, and telling them, take this down, or, put a warning on this, deboost that. That's the effective equivalent of a black box label for content. If you're not going to create even reasonable disclaimers and just suppress information, what the average person will do is come to a conclusion based on what is available to them. But if what is available to them is a small sliver of the total groupthink or of the total thought, you're going to get very narrow opinions. And it allowed a small group of people to control the narrative and then to make decisions. That is extremely dangerous in a democracy. So that's the first thing that we learned in COVID that has to change. So within that, I think we have to go and uncover all of the true underlying medical research and put it out into the light. The Great Barrington Declaration that Jay Bhattacharya wrote caused him to essentially get defenestrated from Stanford. And yet he turned out to be right as well. There are umpteen examples where very credible scientists were saying, let's just slow down here and think about this. And they were not allowed to say that. And that content was essentially suppressed. So rational, independent thinking people like you and me and your listeners could not come to our own conclusion. So that's number one. The second thing is that what we learned in COVID is, hold on a second, this globalist monoculture has made us super fragile. If somebody in some remote part of the world decides that they don't like what we're doing or saying, they can shut things off, and all of a sudden these supply chains go dark and our entire economy folds in on itself. That cannot be how a robust, resilient country like the United States thrives for the next 250 years, like we have in the last 250. So that was the second big thing. And then the third thing, which we still are not putting our finger on, is we have had a huge setback to kids. It created an enormous deficit from learning and from socialization. And I can speak personally about this myself. With 5 kids all sheltering in place for that period of time, when I look at the impacts, it's the children at that age that were 6, 7, and 8 who are today 11, 12, 13, and 14, of which I have 2 actually. My gosh, they really took a step backwards in their ability to learn, in their ability to engage. And I don't think we're doing the best for these children who are the future of our country in the next 20 or 30 years. So those 3 things in COVID, frankly, caused me extreme frustration. The lack of free speech and democracy, the lack of resiliency in the United States economy that we had created because we just outsourced everything to Davos and their ilk, and then the impact of our kids that we are still not addressing. I think that all of that needs to get put on display, and we need to be extremely honest about it. The problem that Biden did at the end, which I thought was extremely offensive, was by pre-pardoning all these folks, we essentially allow this get out of jail free card where you can't even interrogate the truth. So you can't even have an accounting for the future. Look, we have had huge mistakes in the past in the United States, but we've been able to have commissions. Those commissions can at a minimum write reports. Those reports can then be taken by think tanks. We may not agree with this process, but at least at a minimum, there is a way for good, sensible policy to then enter the water table. None of that will be possible here because so much of it is suppressed, or because we've already taken all of this stuff off the table, we can never even ask the questions. That is really wrong.
Here's the other problem. The media. They were
complicit.
Totally complicit.
Totally complicit.
Right? Totally complicit. They went along with it. Not everyone. I mean, independent media in our lane, All In and yours truly and Tucker and many others were speaking up against the lies that we were being told, in particular when it came to children. But let me just give you one example, all right? When this was happening, I was listening to Dr. Vinay Prasad. I had never heard of him, but I was very attuned, thanks to Brett Weinstein and many others I do listen to, that there was a problem with these COVID vaccines, especially when it came to kids. And it led me to Dr. Vinay Prasad. I listened to his podcast all the time, and he's a doctor, and he was talking real truths about the COVID vaccines and about myocarditis and pericarditis, in particular in teenage boys, but teenage girls too, and in kids. And now he's at FDA, and now Alex Berenson reporting, again, we expect this to break from the highest level soon, reporting that Dr. Vinay Prasad wrote a 6-page note to staffers saying the real number of children and teenagers killed by the mRNA vaccines is likely much higher than 10 children. After looking at 96 deaths of kids aged 7 to 16, FDA reviewers found 10, quote, died after and because of receiving the COVID-19 vaccination. But that depends on voluntary reporting and is almost certainly a significant underestimate, Prasad wrote. In addition, the FDA reviewers excluded cases where records were ambiguous. And Berenson reports that one of these children died during the Moderna vaccine trial. And what they did with that kid was just to exclude him. They excluded him. We covered a case like this where we had on a guy who was vaccine injured. He was a biker, a mountain biker. He was vaccine injured during the whole process, and they excluded him from the trial. Or was it him and his wife, or his wife? I had two on. In any event, they just wrote him out of the trial, so they didn't have to count him. So this is what was being done, and then those vaccines were made mandatory for our children. I want to say one note to scared parents right now. The information seems to be that, God forbid this thing were going to cause a death, it would have happened. Like it wouldn't be now 4 years later. Like you don't. Yes, of course, get your child checked for sure. You should for sure I'd be having my kid checked if they had a vaccine. But even without the vaccine, if they had COVID, get an EKG, get an echocardiogram. That's actually not too expensive. You can get your doctor to order it, and just check out their heart. That's all you need to do. But the real danger period is right after you get the vaccine. So don't worry if your child had the vaccine and is still fine. You likely avoided it. I don't want to scare people. Go ahead.
The one great thing is, I know Marty and I know Bobby and Jay. These are three exceptional Americans, and they are bulldogs for the truth. And so I suspect that if this comes to pass and there is a black box label, it's because they've done some pretty thoughtful research and they've rerun the data and they've, included the thing is that, you can exclude data, but that data is written down somewhere. So to the extent that they got their hands on this and was able to see it and they decide that the black box label is the right way to go, I really trust those three to do the right thing. The other thing that I'll say is that it would be really incredible over time where we can release some of this data in an anonymized way so that some of these new AI models could rerun some of these statistical analyses just to make sure that all the math was right. I think that's probably something that should happen anyways. That's something that the FDA could do in partnership with Google and Anthropic and OpenAI and Grok as an example. But I think it would give people a lot more certainty that the math and the analysis and the conclusions are defensible, not just in the eyes of the companies who have an economic incentive to get to a yes, but AI models who are trained to just be extremely truthful. And I think that could be a very helpful new tool in the arsenal of how we as a community, like, let's be honest, Megyn, I mean, you and I have both been prescribed drugs. It's really hard to understand what's going on. I just assumed that everything is done correctly. I remember that when I once said on the All In podcast, are you allowed to call something a vaccine that is 30 or 40% efficacious? That's when I got some of the most severe pushback ever, just to even ask that question, because when I think vaccine, when I get a vaccine, I'm protected for life. That's what I just kind of assumed. And so when I give my kids vaccines, that's what I'm thinking as well. But if I'm taking something that's 30 or 40% efficacious, it doesn't seem like a vaccine. It seems like a best efforts attempt. And that's when, at some point I stopped taking the flu vaccine because of that, because it's not really a vaccine. It's, my doctor tells me, 30 or 40% of the time it'll help you. 60% of the time you're on your own. And I wasn't even allowed to ask that question on air.
Yep. Well, so the media thing, back in, it was October 19th, 2022, just to walk down memory lane. And I'd been listening to Vinay and others, and I tweeted out the following because the CDC had just added the COVID vaccine to its list of mandatory or recommended school vaccinations. And I tweeted out the following: a scary number of kids are dying after taking the COVID vax from myocarditis, among other injuries. How dare the CDC add this to its list of school vaccinations? Don't listen. Be very careful with your teenage boys in particular, but girls too. These are not honest brokers. This is dangerous with an exclamation point. The shitstorm that rained down upon me was massive and ongoing. I'll just give you a couple. The Daily Beast, which is literally wrong about everything all the time, tweeted out Megyn Kelly's anti-vax lies are a threat to public health. Daily Beast, you fucking got kids killed. You got kids killed. I saved lives. This show saved lives without question. The Hill, Megyn Kelly faces backlash over COVID tweet. It went on and on. Kara Swisher, Silicon Valley, speaking of Silicon Valley, this was the issue. Not long after this, literally 2 days after this, Vinay Prasad I'd been listening to, literally 2 days after this, my sister died, not of COVID. It's a long story, but she died. And I was supposed to do Kara Swisher's podcast and I had to cancel. So my assistant texted her saying she has a family emergency. She didn't, give up the farm. And Kara Swisher wrote back, oh, I'm sure it's a family emergency and not just she's afraid to come on now, given the storm around her stupid COVID tweets.
I'm really sorry.
And Abby was like too polite to just shove it down her throat and say, actually, her sister's dead. And by the way, when she found out, she wasn't apologetic. She didn't say, oh my God, I'm such an asshole. Sorry for being such a jerk. Anyway, that's what was happening. That was the reaction to that, Chamath.
It's
a huge storm around me telling the truth. Yeah. And I did a whole talking points memo on it the very next day, a whole talking points, giving the examples of what I was talking about, kids who were dying from this. And now we have the FDA finally coming out about to put a black box warning on this thing, saying it was all true. Where's the media accountability? Where's the apology from The Hill, the Daily Beast, from Kara Swisher? Why won't any of the dishonest brokers come out and say, we're sorry?
I think that what has to happen are a couple of really important things. The first is that places like you, places like All In, whoever is willing to just independently call balls and strikes, we have to find a way of growing and thriving. And I think that while we're doing a good job, I think it's still very fragile for independent media. We're still reliant on large distribution channels like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Google and X. And at any point, if those fall into the wrong hands or we go back to repressive or regressive regimes around free speech, the ability to talk about an issue, from all angles will disappear. That's what we can fix, which is we have to become economically viable to be independent forever, so that even if all of those places at some point say, hey, you know what, I don't like what you're saying, you can somehow, get access to satellite internet and start broadcasting your own thoughts independent of everybody else. Now, what does that require? I think what that requires is extreme privacy and a monetary system that can be shielded. Now, that's a risk today because I think, there's still a lot of ways in which wrongthink can be punished. And wrongthink ebbs and flows depending on who you are. Like, the European government of wrongthink is very different than what.
Totally right.
Right. And and we've seen this, by the way.
So I've seen it. You guys you get suppressed. Your videos get suppressed. They get lower circulation if you have wrongthink in them. And in my case,
the 3 videos from our summit that were deboosted?
I get ultimately savaged by the media for something else. They make up some fake controversy to try to diminish my voice because they recognize I'm a threat.
Look at one of my best friends and my bestie on the pod, David Sachs. Look at this weekend, this huge trash burger that was written by the New York Times, complete garbage. Now, and frankly, I talked to David along the way over these months, just seeing how he was dealing with it, and I was so shocked at how patient he was and how forthright he was, because he was like, there's nothing to see here. And it was 5 people over 5 months trying to dig something up. And ultimately, when they found nothing, they tried to write the most hurtful headline, probably with the presumption that maybe most people will just read the headline and move on, and we will inflict the damage we want to see in what is an incredible American. And I think that the reason why that happens is because they still have an economic leg to stand on. And the faster that the rest of us become economically independent and self-assured, Now we can really compete with those folks. And all of these people that malign you or try to suppress us have a much harder time doing it. And then let people come to their own conclusion. They can listen to us and turn it off. They can go and listen to something else. I'm completely fine with that in the free market of ideas. Not everything we say is going to be right, but we're going to get stuff more right than wrong most of the time for most people, so that they're like, at least I'll have it in my diet. And I think the same applies to you. I think the same applies to a handful of other folks, but that's what we need to do. The second thing we need to do is you cannot allow one small cabal of people to control the economic parameters of the United States. That can't happen. And when we outsourced everything to one country and we outsourced all the decision making to a confab in Switzerland once a year, we just completely stopped thinking for ourselves. And we can't do that anymore. And I think the best thing about the Trump administration is they don't have any tolerance for that.
No, none whatsoever. Chamath, we got to go because I'm up against a hard break. Love talking to you. Please
Great to
come
see
back
you.
soon.
Happy holidays.
You too. Good luck to your family. Hope everybody heals up. We'll be right back. When you are buried in credit card and loan debt, it's human nature to put it off and say, I'm going to deal with that later. If that's you, here's something you need to know. Done with Debt discovered a little-known strategy that works in your favor to dramatically reduce or even erase your debt altogether. They can aggressively engage everyone you owe money to this fall. And here's why. They know which lenders and credit card companies are doing year-end accounting and need to cut deals. They even know which ones have year-end audits and need to get your debt off of their books. So consider getting started with Done with Debt now, this fall. Done with Debt accomplishes this without bankruptcy or new loans. In fact, most clients end up with more money in their pocket the first month. Get started now while you still have time. Go to donewithdebt.com and speak with one of their specialists for free. Donewithdebt.com. Speaking of this show getting it right, no matter how many hits in the media we take, Fani Willis is the first topic of today's Kelly's Court. While many of us were enjoying the Thanksgiving holiday, a judge in Georgia officially ended the election interference case against Donald Trump brought by Fulton County DA Fani Willis in 2023. It was this case that brought us the infamous mugshot that Mr. Trump ended up using on campaign merchandise and that now hangs at the White House. Many in legacy media fawned over Fani and her case. Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe once wrote for The Atlantic, Willis's determination to deliver on her responsibility to the rule of law exemplifies a civil servant doing her duty without fear or favor. Oh my God. Former prosecutor Joyce Vance told MSNBC, the prosecution looks like a slam dunk. But then good old Fani blew up the entire case because she couldn't keep it in her pants. It was discovered she had a romantic relationship with the special prosecutor who she hired to lead the case. That news hit the night of January 8th, 2024. And within hours, this show called it. Sorry, but we were the truth tellers. We knew Fani Willis was in trouble, and we owned the coverage as it fell apart over the next several months. Watch this. I have so much to tell you about today, and the lead story is unbelievable. Why is it not everywhere? The case against Trump in Georgia, I'm not sure the case itself is going to go away, but the prosecutor might be. Some people might be saying, so they're having an affair, who cares? You don't understand. The law puts extraordinarily high ethical burdens on prosecutors. Given the power they have, it can't even have the stank of impropriety. Fani, you're in trouble. I really don't see a way in which Fani Willis stays. I don't know that the whole case goes away, but I think she's going to go away.
We all know that Fani Willis is toast. This is going to get a lot worse for old Fani and Nathan Wade before it gets better.
There have been massive and explosive developments in the Fani Willis case. She's picking up the documents. It's a lie. It's a lie.
No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie.
Anytime she gets caught in a lie, she lashes out.
We have gotten our hands on the texts.
These text messages show that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade did, in fact, have a romantic affair. When you put it together, it's probably lights out for Fani Willis and her prosecution team.
The folks over at the New York Times are absolutely flabbergasted. Who even knew that this could potentially be a thing?
The feeling that a lot of people had when this motion was filed was that it was kind of a Hail Mary, right? And there was not much evidence that it was necessarily even true.
Actually, just fact check for you, New York Times. Some of us knew exactly what to make of it if you just have an open mind when it comes to anything involving Donald Trump. Christmas came early. It finally happened. A Georgia appeals court has officially disqualified her from the Trump election interference case. She's gone. She's done. It's over for her and her entire office, and it's official. Another nail in the lawfare coffin against now President-elect Donald Trump. Wow, what a walk down memory lane. Joining me now, two of the lawyers who helped walk us through the case falling apart with honest, on-point analysis. Phil Holloway and Dave Ehrenberg, who are both now contributors to the MK True Crime channel. That's its own podcast. If you haven't subscribed, go to wherever you get your podcast, type in MK True Crime, and hit subscribe. We've got a couple of week offerings on true crime around the country, and it's a great show. It's doing really well. Phil, Dave, welcome back. And Phil, congrats on having that one right from the beginning. Dave, we still love you.
Thank you.
It took me a while. I didn't know Dave was ever on the other side of that. I thought it was sort of unanimous that we all kind of knew she was going to be gone.
He would be devil's advocate, I'll say. He was devil's advocate.
It took me a while
to have her interest represented too.
You know, at the beginning, Megyn, you're right. You're right to call me out because I thought, like others did on my side of the aisle, that, well, you know, there may be some issues here, but the underlying case is strong. It won't affect it. And then as more evidence came out of this and possible lying in court, I was like, yeah, this is going to jeopardize this whole thing. Although I did correctly predict that the judge would remove Nathan Wade rather than Fani Willis.
Yep. But then eventually she went and the whole case went. And what a remarkable ending, Phil. You know, it was like, it's fun to walk back to like how this all went down January and February. Most of those clips for the listening audience were all from January, February 2004, leading up to that announcement at the end, December 2004, sorry, 2024, that she'd been disqualified. And, you know, no one believed it was going to happen. I love that New York Times, The Daily clip where they're like, yeah, this is obviously a long shot, you know, Hail Mary by this weirdo Ashley Merchant. Like, this isn't going anywhere. Everyone can see it's not going anywhere, but I guess we'll have to entertain it a little.
Yeah, so I go back to, I remember like the whole thing, obviously, but going back to, let's say the day or the evening, I guess, of the grand jury indictment, I actually was out doing a live remote with Fox News in front of the Fulton County courthouse. And, you know, she comes out, Fani Willis does, and she has this press conference, and she's in front of this giant podium, and next to her is, among other people, Nathan Wade. And I remember thinking to myself, what in the world is going on here, right? Because I knew the guy. I knew there was something going on. It was kind of like one of these things that in my legal community, everybody sort of knew that these two like were some kind of an item. And so right then on the spot, it occurred to me, I'm like, this is going to be a problem. And then, of course, fast forward to the motion being filed and the other revelations that came out through that motion, and then the testimony and the things we've learned subsequently. It's just really remarkable to think back and think about all the different gyrations this case has gone through. But I kind of suspected the moment of the indictment that this was going to be a problem.
It's crazy. Like Ashley Merchant, who's also part of MK True Crime, smelled a rat, and she continued to follow that lead that they were allegedly having an affair while he was married, and he was working for her on the taxpayer dime and was like a dog with a bone on that story. She would not let it go.
Can I add something? I forgot to say.
Them both DQ'd.
Sorry, Darryl, I forgot to say. You showed a picture just a moment ago of her, Fani Willis, out, with Nathan at that press conference. Look, a confidential source whose name is Ashley Merchant tells me that that giant podium there was something that she rented especially for this occasion, and continued to rent it thereafter until eventually one was purchased. And also that giant seal that says district attorney on it, that was something that was also, as I understand, was sort of custom made for the occasion. So the whole thing just reeked of theatrics
amazing.
from the beginning.
That's a great tidbit. Wow, the vanity. I'm sure you did that too when you were Palm Beach DA, Dave Ehrenberg. Did you forget to do that for yourself, that self-aggrandizement?
No. I used whatever furniture was there from my predecessor like 10 years prior. So no. you know what?
So what do you make of this, Dave? So the official news is that the whole case is now gone because they did appoint a subsequent prosecutor. Well, it was basically this group, the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, which Phil told us was exactly who it would go to. Mm-hmm. It's a nonpartisan group to figure out whether there's another prosecutor who wants to take this case. And lo and behold, the guy who took it, Prosecutor Peter Skandalakis, notified the judge, Scott McAfee, who we followed a lot when he did that DQ hearing, said, we're not going to go forward with this, judge. And now, as a result of the judge saying, okay, it's out, like all these defendants, it's over, right? Like, it can't be is it done with prejudice? Like, can they refile against Trump and these other defendants?
Yeah.
And also, my other question is, what happens to the people who copped pleas, like Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, and others?
Theoretically, oh, sorry.
Well, actually,
Dave and then Phil.
Well, let me take that last part, Phil, and you could take the other part. That last part I have some experience with because it's up to the prosecutor. The prosecutor could go back and say, you took a plea, I'm now undoing the plea deal. Remember the Robert Kraft case? I had that case in Palm Beach County. Well, he fought those
with
charges.
Massage parlors?
Yes. And he fought those charges. We got plea deals from all these other guys in advance. And after Kraft was able to win on appeal, and the judges said they threw out all the video, and we said, okay, enough. We can't pursue the case. We went back and then we undid the plea deals with all the other defendants, saying, you guys pled early, you did the right thing, and we're going to undo the prosecution, dismiss everything, because you shouldn't be penalized for copping the plea deal early on, accepting responsibility. And so it's up to the prosecutor here to say, you guys accept responsibility. Why should we punish you from doing, in the prosecutor's mind, the right thing early on? So it's up to them. But otherwise, those plea deals stay. They remain. And I believe they can still go after the other co-defendants. I believe this ruling only pertains to Trump, and they will not be able to file it again against Trump. And I would also defer to Phil because he knows Georgia law better than I do.
Well, so this is called a null pros. That's Latin for dismissal. And it applies to every remaining defendant who did not take a plea deal. So all the cases are officially dismissed, not just Trump, all of them. Theoretically, in Georgia, after this null pros or this type of dismissal, and a charge can be rebrought within 6 months. However, as we now have seen, there's no other prosecutor in the state of Georgia that's able or willing to take the case, according to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. And let me just say, Pete Skandalakis is somebody I've known professionally for many, many years. He is, I would say, politically a moderate, but he's always struck me as a straight shooter, right? He calls it as he sees it. And he wrote a rather long opinion that he filed with this dismissal that explained his reasoning. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of, look, he thinks this thing needs some finality. There's no other prosecutor that wants to take it. It's not feasible for the PAC to do it, even though they can. So no other prosecutor is able to do it. No other prosecutor can do it. He's not going to appoint another prosecutor. He's already made his decision. So that 6 months is just a hypothetical. It's over. It's not coming back. There will be no re-indictment of this case by any prosecutor. As far as the ones that have pled guilty, a card laid is a card played, kind of like as Dave was describing. And if there were a prosecutor on the case who were willing to go back and somehow undo these things, that might be a possibility. But in Georgia, there are very strict time limits. Those time limits have long since passed. Some of them have actually, I know of at least one, maybe two, that have actually tried to withdraw the plea, and the trial judge has denied it according to Georgia law. I think he was right to do that. But I think that those people will forever remain, either convicted or perhaps they get their what's called first offender discharge. But
when you plead,
they're done.
You're convicted. A plea is a conviction of whatever they pled to, a misdemeanor or a felony. I didn't go through them all. It's Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, Kenneth Chesbro, and Scott Hall. all of whom decided to cut deals to lesser charges. That's really unfortunate for them. They should have put their faith in Ashley Merchant, but who knew?
They didn't know.
She represented one of the defendants, not even Trump, but she was a local lawyer who knew the local courts, the local players, and knew Fani Willis a little too well for Fani's taste. Fani, a man is not a plan, and you chose the wrong man to lay down with. You got the fleas, and now everyone's free. Okay, let's keep going because there's a couple of other interesting cases in the news today, which is why we brought you on. The January 6th pipe bomber. So this has gotten a fair amount of coverage, but not as much because it happened right before J6. It actually happened on J5th. I think this is when the bombs were planted. And there was a very explosive, pardon the pun, report in The Blaze recently on this case, which does not seem to have held up. And so the question to you guys is whether The Blaze is about to be hit with a massive defamation lawsuit. Here are the facts as we know them. The pipe bombs, okay, the FBI said an unknown subject placed pipe bombs under a park bench at the DNC and the Capitol Hill Club near the RNC building between 7:54 and 8:16 p.m. the night before January 6th, so January 5th. Discovery of the devices between 12:40 and 1:05 p.m. respectively the next day on J6th drew already depleted police resources away from the Capitol. The FBI released the first photo of the pipe bomber on January 7th. So they do have a picture of this person on surveillance cam, offering a $5,000 reward. It later upped the reward to $500,000. The description of the person is 5'7" with a face mask, gray hooded sweatshirt, dark pants, gloves, distinctive black and light gray Nike Air Max Speed Turf shoes. The pipe bomber sits on the DNC bench first, then walks away for several minutes, then walks back and plants the bomb, does another several loops near the RNC, and is believed to have then planted the bombs there. Here we're showing for the listening audience screen grabs of the same person with what we now know are bombs in a bag. Very clear visuals from a Ring camera in the alley near the RNC can be seen. Now, The Blaze just like 2 weeks ago, right around there, with this big report, it was November 8th, by Steve Baker and Joseph Hanneman. A forensic analysis of a female former U.S. Capitol Police officer's gait, G-A-I-T, meaning the way one walks, is a 94 to 98% match to the unique stride of the long-sought J6 pipe bomb suspect, according to a Blaze News investigation confirmed, they say, by several intelligence sources. A source close to a congressional investigation of J6 additionally told Blaze News evidence has emerged recently that pointed toward law enforcement possibly being involved in the planning of the pipe bombs. A software algorithm that analyzes walking parameters, including flexion, hip extension, speed, step length, cadence, and variance, rated, and I'm going to skip her name since we now have serious reason to believe she did not do it, of Alexandria, Virginia, a 94% match to the bomb suspect shown on video from January 5th, 2021. Now, they name her. They go through how she broke her leg once, and that's why they think her gait is off, as they believe is true of the J6 pipe bomber. And yet, what we know now is that CBS News reporting, she has an alibi, guys, that this woman they named has an alibi showing herself on video with her puppies during exactly the time of the pipe bombs being planted. And the Blaze has not taken down its article, remains online, but they've added the following updates. One, they point out that an attorney for the woman told the Washington Post that she categorically denies that she planted the pipe bombs. Two, they point out the CBS News report from November 25th that the FBI has ruled out this person as having any involvement in the pipe bomb plot, citing three sources who were not identified. And three, they say, according to CBS, the suspect was cleared after establishing an alibi. Blaze News repeatedly requested such evidence from the FBI. The FBI apparently did not provide that. So the Blaze is sort of, Glenn Beck went on the air. He would not name this person, saying, I don't know, he wasn't comfortable naming her, but the Blaze did name her. So this is like every reporter's worst nightmare, that you go out on a limb with something this incendiary, which is why most of us would not go out on the air with something this incendiary unless we had it, dead to rights. And now the woman's saying she has an alibi, and you tell me, Phil Houston, whether a big old defamation lawsuit is coming.
Yeah, it very well could be. And look, you're the journalist of the three of us. I am not a journalist. I'm simply a lawyer, but I know that there are things called like junk science, for example, that get a lot of people convicted wrongly in America. And so I know that it's very dangerous to use junk science in a courtroom. So it stands to reason that it would be dangerous to use junk science to name someone as the perpetrator of a crime in a media report. This gate analysis, it hasn't yet met the standard in the United States. We would call that the Dalbert standard. It's the standard for the admissibility of scientific evidence. But this stuff has a very high, failure rate, upwards of 30% in real world settings. And so you've got variables such as lighting, you got temporary conditions like someone might be injured for the moment, but then they walk a different way later. There's subjective pieces of it that can change from one person to the next, making this comparison. And we don't know what kind of source code goes into this, this software that was used. And so it's the kind of thing that, if you're law enforcement and you want to use this as maybe a tool that might make a suggestion as who you might want to look at, and then you'd have to confirm it and verify it through some other type of corroborative evidence. But to use this exclusively to name a suspect seems extremely reckless, in my opinion, something I would not do. And if I were a lawyer representing a media company, I would definitely say do not do it, because the risk of defamation is extremely high.
Same. Sorry I called you Phil Houston. That's my CIA spy the lie guy, but you're both in the business of truth detection.
That's all right.
Phil Holloway, similar, same initials. Dave, what do you make of it?
You remember the name Richard Jewell?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was the security officer who was blamed for the Olympic Park bombing, and it was false. And he got a massive
Most people think he still did it.
That's the
Most
problem.
people still think he did that.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep going.
No, and that's the problem here. The Blaze could have retracted it and mitigated their damages, but they didn't. They're explaining it away. And that opens them up to punitives, because we know now that this is not the person who did it. And they're still going with the story, although presenting, both sides of it. Here's the issue. She's not a public figure, so it's a much lower burden to prove defamation. And here you had the Blaze relying on an unverified draft memo that came from Tulsi Gabbard's department, along with disputed software, which Phil correctly mentioned. And the fact is that the FBI never charged her. If the FBI had charged her, it'd be a different story. So you have all this stuff that leads to a potentially massive defamation lawsuit. And I don't know why the Blaze would continue to go with this story, because now in doing so, it's now opening themselves up to punitive damages. Just keeps getting worse for them.
Oh, God. Well, I love the guys at the Blaze, and I know them to be honest reporters. I think if this is wrong, it's an honest mistake. But I'm going to guess, Phil, without knowing, the only reason they would leave this up is they still believe it. That that we say it's an alibi video, but they're saying it hasn't been provided to them by the FBI. Maybe they're not comfortable with CBS's reporting that it's a legit video, the timestamp of which is legit. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't seen it themselves, and they didn't make it up. You mentioned the Tulsi memo, which is, I guess, important to how they got here. And that was, as I understand it, somebody in the DNI's office, Tulsi's office, generated some memo because someone brought a tip to them, is how I understand it went down, saying maybe it was this gal. And since this gal is still working in the government, they had some sort of an obligation to let her employer know within the government, this allegation has come in against your employee. Look into it, or we're looking into it, or the FBI is looking into it, just in case. Like, if she really were a pipe bomber, it'd be something that they'd want to know. And I think that's what somehow got leaked to the Blaze. But even Tulsi's now distancing herself from that, saying, I was out of the country when that shit went down. I have nothing to do with that. And I don't like, this is very scary to me as a journalist, because to me, it feels like they took an unnecessary risk and they're about to get seriously burned.
Well, yeah, look, if I'm wondering where the lawyers are in this, because the Blaze obviously has counsel, right? All media organizations have counsel, that this is their job, is to make sure that their clients don't get in trouble. And, I think that any lawyer would have to say, you need to take this down, issue a retraction, do something. As Dave mentioned, there's a duty to mitigate damages. And so I wonder if it's the thing where the client is saying, we're going to leave it up over the objections of our counsel, or maybe the counsel has not, said, take it down. I just don't understand why it's still
maybe
up.
they have something we don't know.
There may be something
exactly.
that we don't know. We're not privy to these
But I have
discussions.
to tell you, like, we saw the story because it was everywhere when they first hit it. And we contacted some of our sources in the government, and we were told, stay away.
Mm-hmm.
Like right away, we were told, don't touch it. And we did not touch it. And so I love the Blaze, and I hope they do the right thing. And I don't want to see them get sued, but they're going to, if this was wrong. Okay, let's keep going. So there's some interesting information coming out now against Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith, a big old lawsuit. This has got like the stench of some of the crazy Diddy lawsuits around it, some of which were valid and some of which were insane and completely made up. So you guys tell me what you think this one is. Okay, this is via the Daily Mail, People, TMZ, lots of them are reporting on this. There's a man named Bilal Salam who made a cameo appearance in Will Smith's 2000 movie, The Legend of Bagger Vance, who describes himself, this is him saying about himself, as a best friend for nearly 40 years of Will Smith. Now, I am being told by a source close to the case, they are not anything close to best friends, nor are they close at all. Like, they're not close. So that this is a glamour. But he's filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court seeking $3 million. And whenever I see $3 million, guys, I think, okay, did someone break your femur or your skull? Do you have permanent brain damage? What is it? No, it's intentional infliction of emotional distress. And whenever I see that claim, I think, money grab. We need Mark Eiglarsh and his $20 bill, like that he likes to hang over the top of the screen and then grab it. It's a money grab. So intentional infliction is a bullshit claim, in my view, and in many courts' view, unless it's paired with a serious physical injury. Otherwise, I laugh at those claims. Sorry, Bilal Salam. I don't mean to prejudge you. Here's the other thing that tells you it's bullshit. Do you guys know what the other big problem is with his lawsuit and how it's being handled?
Because
that tells us
he's doing it himself. He doesn't have a lawyer. It's pro se.
There you go.
Any lawyer with a brain doesn't take this case.
So he's representing himself. Yeah. No bueno. Okay, but let's go through it nonetheless. He spoke to the Daily Mail after filing papers. He said he is seeking justice for the atrocities committed against him by Will and Jada. Atrocities, I tell you. He clarified that while the 3 counts target Jada, he plans to file against Will as well. He alleges her alleged actions, which include her and her emissaries, included trying to bribe, intimidate, and suppress him. He says he suffered damages, the complete derailment of his personal life and career. He's suing Jada for intentional infliction because she denied to TMZ that she had ever seen her husband engage in sexual or intimate behavior with men. Now we're getting to it. He alleges that Jada confronted him in the lobby of the Regency Calabasas Commons on September 25th, 2021, while he was at a private birthday celebration for Will Smith. He alleges Pinkett Smith, Jada, was accompanied by approximately 7 members of her entourage during the confrontation. He claims that she became verbally aggressive and threatened him by stating that if he continued telling her personal business, that's a quote, he claims, that he would end up missing or catch a bullet. He also alleges that she demanded he sign a non-disclosure agreement or else. After the alleged incident, Pinkett Smith's team followed him to his car, he claims, while continuing to issue verbal threats. 6 months later, he claims there was another incident where he refused a request from a mutual friend to assist with crisis management. He thought the tasks he was asked to do were illegal, and then he started getting threatened by them, he said. And it turns out he was all this while writing a, quote, whistleblower memoir. My note reads, oh, Lord. Alleging that he faced further threats after that was discovered. He was supposed to get $500,000 for it, and now those hopes have been destroyed as a result of the pressure by these two. Last but not least, before I toss it to you, I'm sorry I have to do it, but I have to do it. This plaintiff, he went on a podcast called Unwind with Tasha K. And in this interview, he alleged something very, very ugly about Will Smith. It's very, very graphic. It actually does require a viewer warning. Please cover the children's ears. Turn down the sound if they're with you in the car, moms and dads. But here is what he's saying about Will Smith, which I think now he's claiming Jada denied, thus leading to his emotional distress. Here, watch. Hide the kids.
So, all right, I open the door to Dwayne's dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having anal sex with Will.
Let me process that for a second. Who was on top?
It wasn't a top. There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up, killing him. Murder. It was murder in there.
Boy.
Okay. What did you do?
I froze. What did you, see, I'm not used to seeing. Listen, it's traumatizing. I've never seen it. I don't watch gay porn. And I finally said, oh, shit. And they turned around and said, close the fucking door, right? So I back out the door.
Okay, just the final thought. Again, I am told by someone close to the case, this is a total money grab. This is not a close friend of theirs. This guy's been trying to hustle the family for money for years, and that there was never a meeting where Jada or any of her friends confronted or threatened him at all. So there are real questions about whether this guy has any credibility, but he's filed the lawsuit and it's getting a fair amount of coverage and attention. What do you make of it, Dave? I'll start with you on this one.
The strongest allegation he has is that Jada threatened him by saying, you'll catch a stray bullet. But even if that's to be believed, and I don't know if I believe anything this guy says, that allegation is from September 2021. That's well beyond the statute of limitations for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And this guy would know that if he had actually hired a lawyer. But no lawyer would want to file this case because it's based on crazy stuff. Like, for example, he says that it's intentional infliction of emotional distress because after she said that to him, he gained 100 pounds. Really? You're going to blame it on that? No doctor's note. He just says I gained 100. Maybe it was the brownies.
I'm going to sue my mom for intentional infliction for those middle school years.
Right, yeah. Blame, who are you going to blame for like the freshman 15 when you go to college, right? I mean, it's silly. Also...
Sam Adams.
Right, exactly. He's claiming defamation. What's a defamation? He said that Jada defamed him by saying she would sue him for the sex comments, but never did. That's not defamation. So this is a strategic move to try to get money from Jada and Will Smith and perhaps to win in the court of public opinion. But so far, he's losing badly.
My feeling, Phil, is that he's banking that they would pay money to avoid that soundbite getting rerun on this show or Entertainment Tonight or TMZ. He thinks they have enough money and they care enough about Will's reputation that they would pay to stop the airing of these mere allegations. But these allegations have been out there for years about these two. If they paid off anybody who was alleging Will was bisexual or gay, whatever, they'd have no money left.
Well, Will Smith and Jada Smith, they have enough money to hire good lawyers to sue him for defamation and other things, unlike this guy who apparently could not find a lawyer to take his case. Normally, these things are taken on a contingency basis. So any lawyer with a brain, for all the reasons Dave laid out, we just would not want to touch this with a 10-foot pole because there's not going to be any recovery. Listen to what has to be proven. And I actually had to go back and look this up to make sure I was remembering this from law school correctly. But this intentional infliction of emotional distress requires that someone intended the emotional distress, and the defendant's actions must go beyond all bounds of decency tolerated by society, often described as shocking or egregious. And then in addition to that, the defendant's alleged conduct must be the actual cause of the emotional distress. And it's got to be severe emotional distress, not just hurt feelings or anything like that.
Gained 100 pounds, Phil.
Look, it's got to be serious and of a nature that no reasonable person could be possibly expected to endure it. Now, so the things that have to be proven are a lot. And, you're going to have some really solid evidence, not to mention the fact that the claim is stale, it's old. But you got to have really solid evidence. And I'm sorry, but if you gained 100 pounds, it's going to be very difficult to try to, pinpoint how that happened. Not to mention the fact that the
his
conduct
next lawsuit, I have it on good authority, is going to be against Aunt Jemima.
Yeah.
I wanted quickly just touch on Luigi Mangione. We reported the other day on AM Update, he's been in court this week trying to get the evidence that was found in his backpack, which included his 3D gun, a note that appears to read like a confession, thrown out because the cops, when they confronted him in that McDonald's, searched the backpack incident to the arrest. They arrested him. He hadn't yet been read his Miranda rights. And when they arrested him, then they searched his backpack. But they actually questioned him before reading him his Miranda. And he's claiming that it was an invalid search. It was illegal under his Fourth Amendment rights because it hadn't been Mirandized. I mean, now this is what you did a lot of this stuff for a living, Dave. Is he onto something? How do you think this judge is going to rule?
The judge is going to reject this request. It's a normal request by defense lawyers to suppress key evidence. I don't blame his very fine lawyers for trying, but they're not going to win on this. I mean, there's something called a search incident to arrest, as you mentioned, which is an exception to the warrant rule. When you arrest someone, you can search around him. What they're saying is that, well, he was handcuffed, so he had no access to his backpack. It shouldn't have been a threat. Yeah, but if it's on his or next to his person, they can still search it. And then they say, well, maybe it was searched before the arrest. Now, if that's the case, they have a little better argument, but apparently everything I've read said it was search incident to the arrest as part of the arrest. But even if it was searched prior to the arrest, they could get away with it because exigent circumstances, or they have a right to stop and frisk him, and it could relate to the backpack. After all, he has been alleged to murder someone, and they're on high alert. They don't want this guy to pull out a device, a gun, or have a bomb in his backpack. So there are many reasons why you don't need a warrant there. So it's a noble try by the defense lawyers, but it's not going to work.
How about all the questioning before they actually read him his Miranda rights, Phil?
Yeah, this is a common misperception. We all grow up watching crime shows, and you see, you got the right to remain silent and all that as soon as the cuffs go on. So people assume that you have to read Miranda rights, but otherwise the case gets thrown out. But it's not true. Miranda only applies to what we call a custodial interrogation. So number one, the person's got to be in custody. And two, it's got to be an interrogation, questioning by the police. Think about every time you get pulled over for speeding. The cops can come up to you. They can ask you questions. Do you know why were you speeding and all this kind of stuff. They don't have to read you your rights simply because they are doing an investigative type of stop. So this is much ado about nothing. There's nothing wrong with the questions that were asked prior to the handcuffs going on. There's nothing wrong with the search. There's nothing wrong with the questioning that was done after the Miranda rights, because after all, he committed a state law crime by providing a false name to these officers. So I see no problem with it. And like Dave said, defense lawyers, they need to do this. This is part of being a zealous advocate. But just because they raise the claim doesn't mean it's going to be valid. There's all sorts of reasons a judge would deny their claims. And even if they did something wrong that Dave and I have missed, there's something in the law known as inevitable discovery. An appellate court would say that no matter what, they would have eventually searched this bag and found this stuff as part of the inventory process. You've got to inventory someone's
That was
belongings.
the inevitable discovery rule.
Yes.
Was what I argued my, they called it senior prize trials in my law school competition that we won on inevitable discovery. And by the way, they did teach us in criminal procedure, if you ever get arrested and you want to assert your Fifth Amendment rights, which you should to a lawyer, you should say, I assert my Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights to counsel. Yes. There's a whole reason for doing that in law. You should say both, mention both amendments, and that'll really impress your arresting officer. In one of the many, many times Phil assumes you've been pulled over by the cops. I love that. The many times, I mean, there have been a couple, I'm not going to lie. Guys, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Always happy to be here, Megyn.
All right, up next, a story exclusive to the MK Show. You will not hear it anyplace else, and it's amazing. We helped solve a crime. That's next. The tax extension deadline may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the October 15th deadline or owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. And here's the harsh reality. The IRS can charge a penalty of 5% per month, up to 25% of your total tax bill, just for not filing. They're mean over there. That's in addition to what you already owe. The good news, though, is that there's still time for Tax Network USA to help you. Self-employed or a business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got you covered. With tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at many levels. It's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is 100% free. In one short call, the experts at Tax Network USA can determine how much you can save. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. Earlier this week, I reposted on X a horrifying video of, she's not my friend, but she's a dear friend of my friend. And she was violently attacked on the streets of New York City in broad daylight. This is an NYU student named Amelia Lewis. She was walking to class around 9:20 in the morning on Monday, just a couple days ago, when a man came up from behind, struck her, and yanked her to the ground by her hair. Let me tell you what happened here. My dear friend is the mother of Amelia's best friend at NYU. And so my friend Nancy texted me the video of Amelia talking about this on TikTok. She went on TikTok immediately and was upset. I'm like, what is this? She said, it just happened. This is outrageous. I'm like, this is outrageous. I said, is she on X? I'm not personally on TikTok. Our show's on TikTok, but I'm not personally on there. And she's like, she's not. I'm like, tell her to get on X. So she went over, she created an account on X and tweeted the video. She has a new account. I retweeted it, calling attention to it, saying we need help identifying this guy. And can I tell you what happened? The X Army went to work. I tagged the NYPD and the NYPD police chief, and then some other people I know who are very connected to NYPD retweeted it and added other CCs who they knew would pay attention. And this thing started to go viral online on Monday. And guess what? Police confirmed late yesterday the arrest of 45-year-old James Rizzo, who has been charged with persistent sexual abuse, forcible touching, and assault. And now we're learning even more about this guy's deeply disturbing history. 16 prior arrests, a 2-year sentence for persistent sexual abuse, and even a 1997 murder charge. Amelia Lewis joins me now. And also, we've brought in Summer Armstrong, who is my family friend, and also her mother's my dear, dear friend, who helped obtain the footage of Amelia's attack, both NYU students. And Summer was also assaulted herself in New York last May. Gals, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Of course. Oh my God. I'm like, this is like a horrifying story, but it's also kind of uplifting in its own way. So I'm going to start with you, Amelia. So you're walking down the street on Monday morning. This is the first day back from Thanksgiving. You're in a good mood, I assume, as you've been with your family. And how did you experience, we'll show the video, but how did you experience this attack?
Yeah, as you said, it was Monday morning, about 9:20 a.m. I was crossing the street, walking up south of Broadway, right by Waverly Place. And in broad daylight, I felt a extremely painful and hard whack to my butt. And then I turned around and was shocked to see a middle-aged man, and he proceeded to grab my hair and violently and forcefully throw me to the ground.
Were you totally shocked? Like did you have any idea you were in danger as you were walking?
I had no idea. As you can see in the clip that you're going to show, he targets me and follows me from behind. So this is no way I could have seen it.
Okay, so just for the listening audience, we're seeing a street cam and people are walking. Now here comes Amelia. She circled herself helpfully on this video. She's got her jeans on, she's walking, she's got his headphones on. There's a man coming up. He's running to catch up with her. He wails her from behind. She turns around in shock, and then you can see her go down. You see what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 women on the sidewalk, stunned at what just happened to you. And then like lovely New York women come over to help you, which is sweet. And I understand there was a man who came to help you too. So what happened? Like, where did he hit you, Amelia?
So he initially first hit me on the left side of my butt extremely hard. And then after that, it's when he pulled my hair to the ground.
After that, say it again?
He pulled my hair to the ground.
Oh, and then just ran. So did you get a good look at him?
I only got a look at him for like a quick second. I only could see that he had a beard and long hair, and I could tell that he was a white, older male. But after that, he threw me to the ground, and in shock, I just kind of laid there for a bit.
Okay. And what happened with the passersby?
So I could tell that they were also in shock. They kind of stood there and stared at me for a second, but after a bit, they came and lifted me off the ground and kept asking, like, are you okay? Are you okay? They asked if I knew this man, which I said I do not. And then later on, a man helped me call 911.
And what made you go on TikTok shortly thereafter and post your reaction?
I really wanted to bring awareness to the stuff that has been happening to young women in New York City. I've heard so many stories, and on my TikTok, I say, I never thought that this would happen to me, but it's really sad. This is something that happens all the time in New York, and I really want to make sure and use my voice to raise awareness and help other girls stay protected, and also help other girls that have maybe gone through the same experience as I.
Because this has been happening over and over and over to young women in New York. The stories are legion. They go on, and you were aware of that.
Yes. I mean, the news on TikTok, a woman was just thrown with gasoline and set on fire. The stories are insane, and it's horrific.
Yeah. So this isn't like, when you go to NYU, your campus is New York City. So it's not like you're not on campus exactly. It's a public street, but you were on your way to class. And so it's a place where you would expect to be safe. So you decide, after this happens, you did decide to call the cops, to your credit, because a lot of women would not have done that.
Yes, exactly. I first was in shock and didn't know what to do. But after the man approached me holding his phone with 911, I decided to call the cops just because I wanted to report this. And after I did tell the cops, I decided to also let NYU security know so they could alert other students around campus to let them know that this man is going around doing this to other women.
And what were your hopes that the NYPD was actually going to hunt down this man and find him at that point?
I had high hopes. They were very understanding and kind, and they were also told me that they were already aware of the man and the blue towel around his neck running around the city and getting this guy. But I definitely think because of your platform and also X, it helped really put pressure on them to really find this guy and work quickly. So even though I had hoped that they would find this guy, I really don't know if this would get as much attention as it did if it wasn't for X and also for Summer going and getting the footage.
So that's key, because even if I had posted it to X and retweeted your tearful testimonial, it would have been different without the actual video of the assault. And that's where Summer comes in. Summer, you and Amelia are dear friends. What made you think to go to the store to say, do you have video of this?
I mean, right when I got Amelia's text, I was in class and I got a horrible sinking gut feeling because this has also happened to me. And I was lucky enough to have footage in my case. Unfortunately, my assailant was not caught, but I knew that footage is key in this, and I knew that it was in front of stores. And so my first thought was, we need to get this footage and we need to catch this guy.
So was it a liquor store you got it from, whose camera captured it?
Yeah, Warehouse Wine and Spirits on Broadway.
Did you go there? Did you just call there? How did you get it?
I walked in, I was on FaceTime with Amelia, and I just said, my friend was assaulted. Please, can you go through this time frame of footage and see if you have it? Because I'm pretty sure you guys have a camera facing. And lo and behold, they found it.
Oh my God. And it's so clear. It's great
awesome
footage. And on top of it being so clear, it is the reason I think you actually got results in this case. If I had just retweeted Amelia's testimonial, I really don't think this would have drawn as much attention. It's the fact that we can see the crime. It's so infuriating. You want to punch this guy in the face. Every man on X was resolved to help you at this point, Amelia, having seen what he did to you. And everybody knows it's not like, forgive me, but like some hysterical college student saying something that may not have happened, or she may be exaggerating. They can see for themselves this is an assault. It really was a sexual assault, which is what this guy has an alleged long history of doing. So now the story starts going viral on X, and the NYPD sees it. They told us they did see it on X, and now we're going to pick up the story there after this break. Quick break. Don't go anywhere, ladies. More to come right after this as we continue the show. There's a lot of politicians that should be getting coal in their stockings for Christmas, but Birch Gold thinks, as a smart planner, you deserve silver. That's why for every $5,000 you purchase between now and 12/22, Birch Gold will send you an ounce of silver, which is up over 60% this year. See, smart people diversify and have a hedge. That's why you should consider Birch Gold. With the rate cuts from the Fed in 2026, the dollar could be worth less. And what happens if the AI bubble bursts? Consider letting Birch Gold Group help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And for every $5,000 you buy, you'll get an ounce of silver for you or your kids. Just text MK to 989898 to claim your eligibility for this offer. Text MK to the number 989898 because Birch Gold's free silver with qualifying purchase promotion ends on 12/22. Message and data rates may apply. We're back now with Amelia and Summer, two NYU students who have both been attacked in New York City recently, right on the street. And thanks to the collective effort of these young women and the Twitter army, Amelia's assailant has been caught and is in custody right now. We just found out that he has a court hearing today. We believe he's going to get arraigned today. He's in custody. And we just found out, Amelia, that he's a registered sex offender. Here he is. His name is James Rizzo, the man accused of, really, it was a sexual assault because he hit you so hard on the backside. I don't know if that's an okay term for you. It implies something that didn't happen as well, but it was a vicious assault by any measure, and that his name is James Rizzo, so he will be answering to those charges. Let me tell you something, Amelia. You're a very lucky woman because, as you probably know now, he just got out of state prison 2 months ago, where he served a 2-year sentence for a, quote, persistent sexual abuse conviction. And as I mentioned at the top, he actually had a murder charge against him back in 1997, the status of which is unknown. So this is a very dangerous man, and this could have been far, far worse, not to diminish what happened. But as you see his face there up close and you hear that he's on the sex offender registry, how does that make you feel?
Honestly terrified and also grateful at the same time. I'm so grateful I wasn't alone on like a dark, abandoned street with no people around. And also I'm so thankful that no weapons were involved because this could have been so much worse knowing now who he actually is.
Yeah, seriously. And they caught him later that day. By the way, his rap sheet includes charges that he grabbed a woman's breasts in Manhattan in December of 23, allegedly snapping at the victim, "Oh, you want more?" He was caught yesterday, allegedly, in the act of burglarizing an apartment near Washington Square Park. He was also charged with 4 burglaries. which is 3 of which while the residents were sleeping, which is good for you. I mean, it's better if he has more charges. He's more likely to stay behind bars, which has to be a concern of yours. I'll round back to that in 1 second. Summer, I know you and your family very well, and I did not know that you were assaulted last spring. I think that's because it's like common. It's not even that huge a headline for young women in New York anymore.
Yeah, this is one of the most frustrating parts about the situation, because I think as women, we are told this always happens, but what the narrative needs to be is this always happens and there's something done about it. I didn't go public with my attack because it honestly was very traumatizing and hard to talk about. I was struck in the face by a 35-year-old man, and I was struck because he was verbally assaulting my friend, and I asked a simple question to try to deter him away, and he responded with immediate and hard violence.
Wow. What time of day was that?
It was around 10. So it was a little different from Amelia's case, which was in broad daylight.
Okay. And did you ever, like, how do you know he was 35? Was he apprehended?
He was not. That's just my guess. Unfortunately, it became a cold case. He was not found. But crazy enough, this summer I was on a lunch break and I saw him walking around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was scary.
That must have been traumatizing.
Yeah, it was very scary.
And not in the way that people use that term trauma, too many times. Like this guy did assault you. And like this Rizzo guy may have a history of sexual assaults, rapes, attempted murders, who knows? Yeah. Where like you actually do need to worry. And one of the reasons you both need to worry, unfortunately, and I have a daughter too, I need to worry, even I as a 50-some-odd-year-old woman need to worry, is, let's face it, the New York cops will arrest these guys, but the DA and the court system, 9 times out of 10, will not keep them incarcerated. It's in large part due to cashless bail, where they believe it's racist, so they don't require any bail of these guys, which leads to the revolving door of, I'm here, I'm James Rizzo, goodbye, I'm already out back on the streets. And I hope this won't happen in your case, Amelia, again, because he has other charges too. I don't believe that the New York courts will take sexual assault seriously. I really don't. I have a history of reasons to believe that. But are you worried now about either Alvin Bragg, the DA, not taking this seriously enough, or the courts not taking this seriously enough to where he's going to be back out on the streets too soon?
So they have contacted me the other day, and I'm going in and speaking to them. So I don't have really much to say yet until I go in and just hear what they're going to ask me and what their stance is on this case right now. But I'm praying they take this seriously, because I don't know how I'm supposed to go back to school and go back to my normal life knowing that he's still on the street. And because of how much publicity the story has gotten, it makes me really scared.
Yes, but it also is your insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think, also a reason why maybe they will pay attention, because now they know that there really will be follow-up. Oh, I assure you, there will be follow-up if this guy walks because of Alvin Bragg or a judge who's too lenient on crime. I'm happy to go sit in any courtroom where you need me. I will sit in the front row. I'll bring my camera. It'll be super fun for everyone. And we'll make Alvin Bragg an even bigger star than he is. So that's fine. Maybe he doesn't care. I'm going to make him care. And any judge who decides that this is not a big, because it is about you, but it's about far more than you. It's about Summer. It's about all the young girls who you weren't doing anything risky. Not that I would blame you even if you had been, but you're literally, Summer, like you were walking on the street. You were walking to class, Amelia. Like this cannot be, this is what shatters a society. There has to be a basic covenant. You go off to college, even if it's in a city, you can just get from A to B without being in a dark alley, without doing a drug deal, right? Just living your life as a normal law-abiding citizen, that you can make it from A to B safely. And it must have been very destabilizing, Summer. You've had a longer time to process it.
Yeah, it definitely, I would say it kind of came in waves. I remember short thereafter, I was in an elevator and a man that kind of looked similar walked in, and I just froze. And it sticks with you, but it doesn't define how I feel in general. I definitely think it's made me way more precautious when walking and when interacting with people that are mentally ill. But I'm proud to go to NYU and I'm proud to live in the city, but there has to be things done about this. There has to be more concern about NYU student safety around campus.
Well, where's NYU on this? I mean, it's not their, again, it's their campus, but it's not their city.
Yeah.
But where are they? Because I'll tell you, back in the dark ages when I was at Syracuse University, there was a rash of rapes, and they started installing these rape phones all over the campus, like everywhere. So if you were in trouble, you could immediately pick up one of these phones and call campus security. But like, what is NYU doing, Amelia? Have they said anything to you about what are they doing to keep their students safe?
So right after I reported my incident, they were very helpful and gave me all the resources to process what happened. And as well as they reassured me that they're going to take the next steps for campus safety. They have not reached out to me saying what they're doing, but I made sure to highlight how a lot of NYU students weren't aware of what happened to me that day. And I just wanted to let them know that they need to be better on communicating with NYU students and that they should all know when things like this happen.
Is there anything, I look at that tape, Amelia. We should roll it one more time so people can see it. I look at that tape and I don't see anything you could have done differently. I mean, some people were like, don't wear headphones. But even if you hadn't been wearing headphones, you had like 1 second to realize you were about to get hit. Like I'd be the first to say, Amelia, don't wear headphones if I thought that would have saved you. To me, I don't see that at all on this tape. I don't know if there's anything you could have done differently, but how do you see it?
Yeah, I definitely been getting a lot of comments saying, don't wear headphones in the city. I definitely agree. I think that all women, just for right now, please do not wear headphones. Always be aware. You should have your head on a swivel constantly. But in my case, I really don't see how it played any role because he ran up from behind and hit me. There was nothing I could have done. But yeah, also people are saying like, you should get out of the city, run. And I transferred to NYU. My dream was to go to NYU. I just moved to the city and my dream was to live in New York City. And it's the greatest city in the world. And, New York is always going to come back. And so will Summer and I after these experiences. And I want to reassure and tell everyone that experiences like these aren't going to defeat me and other people. And I'm not going to let this man disintegrate my dream.
Good for you. And honestly, it's like getting struck by lightning. The odds of actually becoming a crime victim are slim, even still in New York City. The odds of it happening twice, even slimmer. So hopefully you will feel empowered. And hopefully, you girls, you can take Krav Maga, you can get pepper spray. You cannot get a gun in New York City. It's impossible. All our friends watching this in Texas are like, why don't you just get a gun? My Texas friends are like, why wouldn't they be carrying? They don't understand. Like you literally cannot get a gun unless you have, some serious threat against you. You can get some brass knuckles. You figuratively already have the brass knuckles now, girls, because you did everything a woman can do. I mean, really, I think 9 out of 10 women probably wouldn't have called the cops because they would have realized the odds of something happening, them actually following up, sadly, are very slim. And I don't know, not to go political, but do you worry? Because now we have a soft on crime mayor about to take over who says things like this. I'm going to play SOT 42.
The jail population of Rikers has increased since Eric Adams has come into office by more than 1,000 additional incarcerated New Yorkers. And what is quite staggering to me is that we know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000. Vital City had an article about a number of different proposals that could reduce it to 3,700. And some of this also just has to look at the average stay on Rikers in the 90s was 50 days. Now it's more than 100. there are more than 1,500 people on Rikers who have been held there for more than a year. So I do think many of the reforms that have to be made are also reforms around the court system.
So he's talking about opening up Rikers and letting out the people who are in there by the thousand. There's also still no promise of getting rid of cashless bail. We also have a serious problem with the judges who are on the bench. So I do wonder, whether that adds to any of your concerns, Amelia.
When I spoke out and decided to share my story, I didn't really have the goal of making this kind of any way political. I mostly just wanted to do this for basic human safety. So after all this, I'm really hoping that he and everyone else that is in office and in power is seeing what's going on in New York and actually going to do something about it, because if we're going to have these people in office, their priority should be their citizens' safety.
It's really scary when you think the population of Rikers in March summer was 7,000. So he's talking about letting out half of the criminals who are in there now, in addition to this revolving door we have in our court system, thanks to the prosecutors who are soft on crime and the courts, the judges who go right along with it. And they are not the ones who are going to have to walk on the streets and be assaulted. The DA is a man. The judges tend to be men who are bald and 70. I have practiced in these courts for many, many years. And they are not the targets. They are not young, beautiful girls in the prime of their youth walking around just trying to get an education. Your thoughts on it?
It's definitely scary. And I think in the face of this, we have to focus on girls for girls and people for people. We're all living, no matter who's elected, we're all still living here. And if we protect each other, whether that's men protecting girls, girls protecting girls, girls protecting men, even, we need to do that for each other, no matter who's in power.
Well, sadly, that's right. I mean, that's the best option you have, because it just doesn't seem, they're capping the number of cops under this new mayor. They're not adding more. They've already had their hands tied. I mean, it's not a good situation. Thankfully, you're sophomores, so maybe you don't have that many more years to worry about it. But I think self-defense classes would be good. They at least feel empowering. And you, I hope, are feeling a little more empowered, like today, for example, Amelia, and you too, Summer, than you were right after it happened on Monday.
I definitely am. I posted on my X saying it honestly is helping me sleep at night, knowing that I used my voice, as many other women weren't able to try to get this guy off the streets. And it makes me so happy that he isn't going to be able to hurt any more young women.
Right. How about you, Summer? You feel differently about it now? Like you've had two, you got assaulted, and now what? 6 months later, 7 months later, it happens to your friend. But because of what happened to you, you knew what to do. You took action. And it's directly as a result of what you did that this guy was caught. If you had not gotten that video, I promise you, even I could not have made this a national story.
I'm feeling really hopeful after this whole situation. I mean, a horrible thing happened, but the silver lining is that there is now an attention on this. And I think we all have to have that fire in us to be either ready to pick someone up after they're hit to the ground or get the footage for someone. We all have to be ready and willing to help each other, because that's all we can do in this situation.
I love, Amelia, that it was a man who came over to you with his phone out, having dialed 911, right? Like that man who assaulted you and the one who assaulted you, Summer, do not represent, as you guys both know, the men of America or New York. The guy with the cell phone and the 911 ready to dial does. God bless you. Let us know if you need us at all. And thank you so much for telling your story here.
Thank you so much.
All right, lots of love. Wow, what a story. Okay, this is the first time we actually ran over on our SiriusXM Megyn Kelly channel, so we can do that now. I'll pass it over to Emily Jashinsky. Thank you all for listening. We're back tomorrow with Michael Knowles. See you then. Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We have got so much to get to today. Nick Reiner is soon expected to be formally charged with the murder of his parents, legendary movie director Rob Reiner and his photographer mother, Michelle Reiner. A killer, meantime, is still on the loose after a gunman killed 2 and wounded 9 at Brown University. That situation is going from bad to worse. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do out there with this mayor. Good luck to you, Providence. What a buffoon. We'll get to the latest on how he and now the Attorney General are contradicting each other. They're not inspiring any confidence whatsoever that this shooter will be caught anytime soon. And we are definitely going to get into this Vanity Fair profile. Look at this. Here are my notes on it. It's a very thick document. It's a very long 2-part article written by Vanity Fair with the cooperation of and with several interviews over the course of a year of President Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, and the entire cabinet. Here's a little preview. It didn't go well at all, which is no surprise if you're going to sit down with Vanity Fair. Everyone's asking, why would she do this? Why would you sit with Vanity Fair? It's the Reporter. I guess the Reporter has done all these profiles on chiefs of staff over the years. Okay, that shouldn't do it because Vanity Fair hates conservatives, all right? So you kind of should know what you're going to get. I think Susie Wiles is a very smart, very savvy woman, but it's not a surprise that Vanity Fair did an incredibly unfair piece on Susie Wiles that does not make her or anyone in the cabinet look good. And she's already trying to tamp down some of the admissions. It's not good. We're going to talk about it in just a second because Ruthless is back. The guys from the program are here. Love the fellas. They're coming on in just a couple minutes, but I just want to start quickly with this. I've been telling you as this, I don't know if you want to call it a feud or what, between Candace Owens and Erica Kirk has been heating up, that I would have something to say on it in the coming days, and I do. It's been going on now for a while where Candace, I had that exchange with Ben Shapiro out on the tour where he said she'd accused Erica of orchestrating Charlie's murder. And I was taken aback. I had not heard that. And then in the interim, between that day and the next, I had my staff go research exactly what she had said. And then somebody just happened to ask me a question about it. Truly was not, that was totally organic. That was not a plant by me at all. But somebody asked me about it the very next night. And I actually told them, because I'd been planning on saying something on the show since Ben had made the accusation. And if it was not true, I did not want to be having something that heavy hanging out there. Someone asked about it and I said, that's actually not true. And at that time, it was not true. Candace had not accused Erica of orchestrating Charlie's murder. And I've gotten a lot of grief for saying that, but I was correct. We are relentlessly factual here on this program. And she had not done that at the time. As I pointed out at the time, she had impugned Turning Point. And I realized Erica is CEO, but she wasn't until after Charlie died. So, saying the guys at Turning Point had done something prior to Charlie's death is not the same as saying Erica Kirk. Okay. I'm sorry. It may seem to you like a distinction without a difference, but we really do care about facts, being precise here on the program. We don't always get it right, but that's a big one to get wrong. Well, since then, Candace has been more focused on Erica Kirk. And I think that's because Erica Kirk went on a media tour and started clearly speaking out about Candace. And so, it turned into a rather explosive situation last week where Erica went on with Harris Faulkner on Fox News and said very clearly she wants these, quote, conspiracy theories to stop, especially about Turning Point USA, which she called her Turning Point family. And she was clearly upset. We played the soundbite for you. She was clearly, she's had it. And then she went on with Barry Weiss on CBS for a town hall. They had aired the preview, saw it, and then the actual exchange aired on Saturday night with Barry, where Erica told Candace to just stop. Okay, she just said, I want you to stop. Actually, we'll play that. Let's play the soundbite here.
The podcaster Candace Owens, okay? At one time, a friend of Charlie's, at one time, an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
And that was a clear play on words, if you will, because Candace, when she had started down the turning point narrative, had said, only my husband or Erica Kirk can tell me to stop this. And, like one word from Erica will stop this. And Erica didn't say anything about this. She hasn't really been commenting on podcasts and so on. But she did, as you saw in that clip, say stop. And it was not taken as the command to stop. I think Candace felt she was saying stop lying, and Candace, her defense was she's not lying. She's actually trying to do an investigation into the true killer of Charlie Kirk. I've said before, and I will say again, I think they have the true killer of Charlie Kirk. His name is Tyler Robinson. He's in custody, and I have every reason to believe that he committed this murder. Many people disagree with me. Many people believe there's more to this story, that we're being lied to by our FBI, that there are too many inconsistencies around the official story, and those people are more than entitled to that belief. I don't share it. That's fine. This is America. You can feel differently about these things. But with things ratcheting up between Erica and Candace last week, many people had been asking me, why aren't you saying anything? Obviously, I love Erica Kirk. I do. I love her. And I feel, as I said on the tour, protective of her because she's in an extremely vulnerable state right now. Yes, she's taken on the CEO position of Turning Point. And, it's a fair question to ask whether that's a job she can do right now while she's at the height of her grieving. I take no position on that. I think she's doing fine. But I also think it's fair. You can ask that. So I don't like to see her get attacked at all. And I wish that would stop. And to be honest, I wish Candace wouldn't be pursuing the Turning Point narrative at all. Never mind Erica. Though again, she hasn't graduated to blaming Erica for Charlie's murder. She's criticizing her and the media tour. And that is fair game. That piece of it is fair game. So in any event, Candace knows I disagree with her on this. Petty internet people want to turn that into a cat fight between Candace and yours truly, which will fail. She and I actually have only gotten closer over the past couple of months as people try to make me attack her. So fuck off, okay? I have no obligation to you to hate the people you hate or try to bring down the people you want brought down. I'm sorry, but if that's what you want from me, you do need to move on. It's not going to happen. And I've learned a lot behind the scenes from Candace about some of the things she's been put through from people I used to respect. I also, though, adore and love Erica, and I want this to stop. I do, of course. None of this is a mystery to Erica or to Candace. And a couple of weeks ago, Erica called me, and it's relevant to the meeting they just had. Okay, so I'm going to get into this. Those two had a sit-down meeting yesterday for 4.5 hours, Erica and Candace, alone. Well, I think they had two other people with them, but those were the two principals. And they met face-to-face in Nashville yesterday. No recording devices, nothing, just the two of them. And again, each had a supporter, someone from their own respective teams. I'll let them disclose the specifics of that. But they made a lot of progress, according to them. And this is what they tweeted out yesterday after the meeting. Candace said, Erica and I had an extremely productive 4.5-hour meeting that I think we both feel should have taken place a lot earlier than it did. We agreed much more than I had anticipated. Of course, we also disagreed on various points and people as well. Most importantly, we were able to share intel and clarify intent. I will, of course, have a full rundown for you all tomorrow as I am currently exhausted, but I wanted to quickly let you guys know that absolutely nothing was held back, and the immediate result was that tensions were thawed. That's very good. Erica posted something 10 minutes later, writing, had a very productive conversation with Candace Owens. More to come from both of us. Looking forward to AmFest this week. That's Turning Point's biggest event of the year. It happens this weekend, later this week into the weekend. Time to get back to work. So I will let Erica and the Turning Point crew and Candace Owens fill you in on what happened at that meeting and so on. I just wanted to note, because many of my viewers have been wondering why I haven't said anything, given my previous statements about Erica. And the reason is that I have been working behind the scenes to try to foster a détente between them. Erica called me weeks ago and asked me if I would be part of this sit down with them, which originally they had contemplated might be for consumption by the public, might air in some way, shape, or form, and asked if I would facilitate that meeting between the two of them. And I said yes immediately. Of course I would. I reached out to Candace. She said, absolutely. I'm thrilled it's you. I'm in. And the two of them took it from there, trying to negotiate the specifics of what they'd both be comfortable with, where, when, etc. And eventually it changed after they hit some roadblocks. Again, that's for someone else to tell you about if they so choose. Not having anything to do with yours truly, but hit some roadblocks in scheduling and the specifics that led them to just say, let's do this privately, not on camera, not in a live stream, just us. And I thought that was a great idea, and I fully support it, and I have been in touch with both of them repeatedly. Okay, so that's what I've been doing. And I understand my core audience knows who I am and would never have assumed the worst about me, that I was just abandoning Erica or getting ready to pounce on Candace and, insert myself into this on one side. I'm not getting ready to do that, and I don't want that. I don't think that's God's role for me here. I really fully believe God's role for me here is to possibly play a role in getting this whole thing to a better place. I think I might be in a position to help construct that. Maybe not. But sitting here in my studio in Connecticut, just slinging mud at one side or the other, or tearing people down, or, expressing my disgust, my outrage, that is pointless here. My goal and my job here, I think, is to try to understand, yes, where Candace is coming from on this. I know you're not supposed to say it. You're supposed to just immediately condemn her. But I love the Turning Point guys, and I don't believe for 1 second any of them had anything to do with Charlie's murder. Not for 1 second do I believe that. So people who care about Candace and love Erica have been in a tough position as this whole thing has escalated, and care about Turning Point, which I deeply do, and I will make sure that their legacy is not destroyed, and I will do everything within my power to help them thrive, including supporting my own kids in forming a Turning Point chapter and going out to AmFest and helping headline that event and encouraging everyone I know within the conservative movement to go and support them and to donate. So that's where I am. But that doesn't mean I need to sling mud at somebody who sees it differently than I do. And it especially doesn't mean I should remove myself from a position that I think few hold, where I might be able to actually help this thing go away if I can, or at least get to a better place. All right, just at least get to a better place, not just for them. I don't think this is good for anybody's mental health, but for America, for our country, and definitely for the conservative movement. There are so many really important battles that we're going to have to fight together against the radical left. And if there's any way that strain of argument and contention can be dissipated, can be managed to a place where it's not quite as upsetting, awful, tough on a lot of people I love, then I would like to be that person if I can. This isn't about me. It's totally not about me. It's about those two, and I commend both of them. I mean, honestly, that took a lot of guts for both of them. Erica is grieving. Erica was away all week on the road promoting Charlie's book. She just did. I know people have given her blowback on the press tour. She committed to the stops that Charlie committed to. She is truly trying to fulfill Charlie's legacy and promise on his book. It's not easy for her. People say, oh, she's loving it. She's not loving it. She'd rather be home with her babies because she is now a single mother. She's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old who need her back at home, not to mention Turning Point. And it took guts for Candace to go too. Let's face it. You know, she's been ripping on Turning Point, an organization that Charlie built, that Erica's running mercilessly for weeks now. And she'd been coming under fire for not accepting the invite of the Turning Point guys to join their live stream, which was supposed to take place yesterday, responding to her claims. And then, you know, the big kahuna, the CEO, Erica Kirk herself, and Charlie's widow, she's got a couple of roles in this whole story, reaches out to her and says, I will come sit with you directly. And so, you know, she could have run from that. She could have found 10,000 excuses not to do it. You know, I'm just happy to sit here on my set and hurl allegations without saying them to your face. She didn't. They sat for 4+ hours yesterday. So I'll let them take it from here. But I wanted to tell you what my role in it has been. And I'll just say this final thing. To the hateful people whom I used to call friends, who have been all over the internet trying to shame me and say that no one should ever listen to this program again because I haven't spoken out on the Erica-Candace conflict. There's no, I don't have any pearls of wisdom other than go fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves. You have no fucking clue what's going on. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. And your world is so myopically online, you fail to understand there are real humans involved here. And actually being able to touch grass and have relationships with them, which is something I'm doing, could prove to actually benefit all involved. Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't at all. But it's at least got a shot. I'm not sure your Twitter shame game has gotten anything of value done. Okay, let's get to the news. More on that tomorrow after both women, I think, will have spoken out about it in more detail, or their teams. Joining me now, the fellas from Ruthless, one of the greatest programs on earth. Josh Holmes, Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, and Comfortably Smug. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. I want to tell you about Shen Yun, now celebrating its 20th anniversary. For 2 decades, audiences have seen something truly unique. Shen Yun has played top venues like Lincoln Center, the Kennedy Center, London's Coliseum, and the Sydney Opera House, and each season tours to over 200 cities worldwide. What is it? It's classical Chinese dance, a live orchestra, and animated backdrops bringing to life 5,000 years of traditional Chinese civilization, a culture the communist regime in China has tried to erase. You will see amazing dancers bringing to life myths and legends, heroic warriors, and heavenly realms in gorgeous costumes that flow like silk with flips and spins that look effortless yet superhuman, all set to music that tugs at your heartstrings. Inspiring, uplifting. If you are looking for an unforgettable gift for your family, I really recommend you check it out. Visit shenyun, SHENYUN.com/Megyn to waive ticketing fees when you order. That's shenyun.com/Megyn. Guys, welcome back.
Hi, Megyn. Great to see you.
It's great to see you too. Just a day ending in Y where before you come on, I've told everyone to go fuck themselves.
I thought that was, a special reservation for us since you're speaking our language.
Makes you feel right at home.
Yeah, it does, right? You're back. We're back. We can pick up right where we left off. All right, but actually, where I want to pick up is the Susie Wiles thing. Have you guys read this thing yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
OMG. So just for the listening audience, and we'll go through it and we'll talk about all the juicy details. It's extraordinary. It was so revealing on so many fronts. I texted my team today saying, is she quitting? Is Susie Wiles quitting? Like, this seems like the kind of thing you do knowing that your days were numbered and you're kind of going to burn some bridges on the way out and you don't really give an F. But she's not quitting. She tweeted an attack on the Vanity Fair article today saying we're mission focused, we're not going to pay attention to this and that kind. But like, she talked to this guy for over a year, multiple times, double digits, I think. And there's so much. How many, Rob? 11 times. To the point where like now people's jaws are slack online, wondering, Does she hate everyone in the administration, or does she just not understand Vanity Fair? Many people I've talked to within the conservative circles think that she must have been saying these things thinking they were off the record. Now she's trying to tell the New York Times that she didn't say at least some of them, and which has forced the reporter, Chris Whipple of Vanity Fair, to provide the tape recording pieces to the New York Times showing she did say the things. So that's not the move. This guy is a respected reporter, though he works for a leftist publication. You know, she's producing the receipts, the recordings already. So don't play that game. If you said it, just stand by it. And I'll just give you what I think is the biggest. This is what I think is the biggest problem in it. All the rest is just insults, like saying J.D. Vance is a conspiracy theorist and has been for 10 years. Saying his conversion to MAGA and being pro-Trump was sheerly political, which she contrasted with Marco Rubio's evolution, which she credits as being sincere, right? Like, it's not great. He's the vice president. He's almost certainly going to be the Republican nominee next time around. And you've got Susie Wiles saying he's a conspiracy theorist. But I'll tell you the one that's probably the most consequential in real terms. And that is on page 18 of the 35-page article, at least the way it printed for me. And when she was talking about the Letitia James indictment, and he's pressing her on whether this is all retribution. She is saying, okay, you know, he doesn't like some of these people, et cetera. And then she says, the question is, what about Letitia James and her mortgage fraud? Answer, well, that might be the one retribution, quoting Susie Wiles. That is utterly unhelpful. And if they ever manage to re-indict Tish James with a grand jury that will actually do its job because she does deserve to be re-indicted, it will be promptly dismissed now with that quote because she speaks for the president. And that is effectively the president on record saying this is no more than political retribution, which as a practical matter will now doom the Letitia James criminal case. Again, it's already on life support, given the fact that they can't get a grand jury to re-indict now that it's been thrown out because it didn't have a prosecutor on it who was a legitimate U.S. attorney, according to the courts. But that statement actually will have consequences. The rest is political chaos, and that's where you guys come in. What's your favorite thought or admission or takeaway on this thing?
Well, Megyn, first of all, I think this took the political world by storm this morning, in large part because Susie Wiles is known for the discipline, and this White House has been known for their incredible discipline and their lack of interest in entertaining the sort of left-wing media narrative. And so anything that showed up in that space was going to be interesting, to say the least. But from my perspective, I always do this when I'm dealing with like a New York Times or Vanity Fair or whatever. I look at something that they pulled out for a pull quote and they try to throw it in a subhead. And in this case, there was a reference to Donald Trump having the personality of an alcoholic, quote unquote. And I looked at that and I'm like, all right, before I read this article, I'm going to go down and I'm going to try to find the context that is printed in this to see if this can be, because that's not something just out of context that somebody like Susie Wiles would ever say. Mm-hmm. And then you go down and you find out that she was talking about her history of dealing with men, her father, people with alcoholism, functional.
Who was Pat Summerall of the NFL.
Exactly. Functional alcoholism, as she calls it, where she says that basically their personality is their personality. It's just much more embellished than your average person. And so Donald Trump has a much more embellished personality. And that was the context of it. It had nothing to do with alcoholism or personality.
Well, and then she actually goes on to say he operates with a view that there's nothing he can't do. Nothing. Zero. Nothing. Right. Which also adds to it. So it's like trying to be a compliment. Yeah. But the pull quote is not phrased as a compliment.
So, but right there then, you have the framework for the rest of the piece, which is Bingo. Anything you can say and do or quote is going to be framed in the worst possible way. I saw another thing about J.D. Vance making a joke with the photographer about like, I'll pay you $100 if I look better than everybody else in here, $1,000 if it's Marco. Yeah, that's J.D. That's funny. And like leftists don't understand our sense of humor apparently, or dude talk.
No, and they reported that's evidence of the tension, the tension amongst the cabinet. Right. Like, what is an obvious joke, as is this piece?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, I mean, that's the framework that I'm working in. Now it's 35 pages or whatever. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. And you can talk a lot about whether there is wisdom in sitting down 11 times with a reporter who's capable of doing something like this or not. But I think that most of it in there, if read through the eyes of the people who know them, know the levity. They know the context of the things that are being said. Johnny, I don't know. You work with these people all the time. Like this seems like it's sort of par for the course.
Yeah, and I also think that this is the most transparent administration that we have ever had in our lifetimes. And they're not afraid of saying what it is they're doing, what it is they're thinking, because they're making such great progress. And I think that came through in the story. And there was a piece of news that they didn't push out on Twitter that caught my attention. It's when she was talking about his building of this great room off of the East Wing, and she said that that's not where it stops. And so much of the left is just losing their minds over the president, our president, who is a developer, improving the White House in a way that every administration behind him will benefit from. And as Michael Duncan points out, it's the most magnanimous thing he's ever done, because he will never get the benefit of this great construction project. But like if you
just to interject, Ashbrook, here's the quote. She says, was Wiles saying that Trump was planning more as yet undisclosed White House renovations? Quote, I'm not telling. That's pretty much all that's in there.
Well, but I love it.
In a meltdown.
I love it. It's fantastic, because if you're going to have a developer who happens to be one of the best developers in the history of mankind in the White House, you might as well walk away with something even bigger and better than you had before. I mean, think if John McEnroe was the president of the United States, the tennis court would look awfully good when he was done. Okay, but I mean, like, if you're going to have a developer in the White House, I'd hope he would improve it.
And there's that
skill set.
There's that quote that societies flourish when older men plant trees whose shade they will never sit under. And that's the case with all of this that's being done at the White House. He'll never actually get to enjoy the benefits of having a secure area to hold White House events. Whoever succeeds him will.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I was at an event at the vice president's residence over the weekend, a Christmas celebration, and we had to go through a tent, and it was actually quite nice. But I think a ballroom would have been even better. And just a quick word on that, because I wanted to tell you, we saw a lot of the administration figures. Doug and I went, and
can I say one thing real quick?
Had a great night in DC.
JD, my invite was lost in the mail. Thanks for it, though.
Okay.
It's a sore subject over here.
Sorry, guys. But I will say this. There are a lot of people there, a lot of big names there, a lot of big donors there too. And J.D. Vance is just in a class of one. Yep. I mean, he is just so at ease among the crowd, like glad handing, but also has the Bill Clinton thing that to make you feel like you're the only one who matters to him when he sees you. Like actually he's looking in your eyes and listening to what you're saying and not looking over your shoulder and like with a follow-up. So it's not like he's just going to make one comment and move on. I'm not even talking about myself. This is me watching him deal with others. He was also like that with my husband, Doug, and me. But like he is just so easy with other people, so affable, so clever, naturally clever and funny. He's got it. He's got the it factor. It's one of the many reasons why we call him 48. And I just think, even in this piece, they have a quote from Marco saying, hold on, I've got it. Quote, this guy, Chris Whipple, writes, will Rubio challenge Vance for the top spot on the 2028 GOP presidential ticket? His answer, Rubio's, if J.D. Vance runs for president, he's going to be our nominee, and I will be one of the first people to support him.
Yeah, it's pretty definitive.
I think Marco's incredibly talented too, but he sees what I saw.
Yeah. Also, that's like the news. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we go.
That's the breaking story, and then everyone else is just talking about this random nonsense, and you have it right there. The question that everyone has been discussing: for years and will be discussing for years, and you actually have a definitive answer to it right there. And then further about JD, every time we have spent time with him, every time I have seen him, there is something to be said about an individual, because for the longest time, Americans thought that when we elect a politician, you want someone who went to Harvard and they're fourth generation Harvard and they're all credentialed. There's something to be said about an individual who has survived conditions that so many Americans have struggled and continue to struggle through. And there's a level of realism that they bring, an understanding that they bring, where it's not like, oh, you know, I sat through a sociology class which described the conditions that you may have seen in the Rust. This is someone who understands it because it's their life story.
But I thought when you were talking about suffering under the conditions, you were talking about Yale. I thought that's where you were going. No, it's the poverty. Sorry, I got it. I'm back.
Wait, I want to get to a couple of the other admissions, though, before we really move on from it, because there is a lot that's going to come back. First of all, a couple of words on this reporter. He writes, Charlie Kirk's assassination in September turbocharged Trump's campaign of revenge and retribution. It did?
What
do you mean? Trump was doing the lawfare prior to that. Critics have compared this moment to a Reichstag fire, a modern version of Hitler's exploitation of the torching of Berlin's parliament. That Trump is using Charlie's assassination in the way Hitler used the Reichstag fire. This is unbelievable. This guy's really showing us his cards, right? So I'll give you a couple more. We talked about how he quotes her saying Trump's got sort of an alcoholic's personality. He also includes the detail that back in 2016, Trump berated her in front of a gaggle of cronies. Wiles told him, quote, "It was a horrific hour plus at midnight, and I don't think I've seen him that angry since. He was ranting and raving, and I didn't know whether to argue back or whether to be stoic. What I really wanted to do was cry." And then she kind of stood him down. Like, okay, again, I'm sure these aren't like her favorite details to read in print. Mm-hmm. It is in here that she worked for DeSantis and got him elected governor in 2018, and then he turned on her, denouncing Wiles publicly and bad-mouthing her privately. To this day, Wiles doesn't know what triggered the governor's vendetta. Quote, "I think he thought I was getting too much attention," which is ironic. I don't ever seek attention, which is true of her. Right. But I mean, 11 interviews with Vanity Fair, kind of cuts against the narrative. By the way, I do know she can't stand Ron DeSantis. Cannot stand. Whatever he did to her burned a serious bridge, and he royally effed that up. She would be a much better a friend than foe to have. Okay, keeping going. Okay, here's more evidence of Chris Whipple's bias and, I'm sorry, but like failure to commit to facts. He's talking about the January 6th riot. The January 6th, 2021 assault on the Capitol, in which 9 people ultimately died.
Ultimately is doing a lot of work in that sentence.
So much work, John. What is that? That is so misleading.
No, there's definitely a lot of work being done, and that word and plenty of other descriptions, and like the one that you read about the Reichstag fire. I mean, get out of here.
I mean, just weaving Nazi propaganda in there, right? I mean, why not?
Yeah, a trans-loving furry murders Charlie Kirk, and that is the Reichstag fire.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's amazing the way that their head works. Right. It's incredible.
Now, here's a couple more. Let's keep going. I got more for you. She's writing about Elon. Wiles described Musk as something akin to a jacked up Nosferatu, which is like a vampire, right? Like that's like a Dracula. The challenge with Elon is keeping up with him, she told me. He's an avowed ketamine user, and he sleeps in a sleeping bag in the executive office building in the daytime, and he's an odd duck, as I think geniuses are. It's not helpful, but he is his own person. Then she goes on to say that she was shocked when he eviscerated USAID. There's a long section on this. Not the way I would do it, she says. Wiles says she called Musk on the carpet. You can't just lock people out of their offices, she recalls telling him. We called up Marco and said, you've got to be in charge of USAID. And then she says, but no rational person could think the USAID process was a good one. Nobody. Now she's denying to the New York Times that she said he's an avowed ketamine user. That's the line in response to which the reporter played the audio for the New York Times. So she's ripping on Elon and then kind of denying it. Okay, then I told you what she said about Tish James. But here's a couple of other more consequential pieces. Okay. She rips on Pam Bondi. And I'm just going to be honest. She speaks for us all. She says, I think she completely whiffed on appreciating that was the very targeted group that cared about this. She's talking about the social media influencers who she invited to the White House only to embarrass them with those binders full of nothing. She completely whiffed on appreciating that was the very targeted group that cared about this. First, she gave them binders full of nothingness. And then she said that the witness list or the client list was on her desk. There is no client list, and it sure as hell was not on her desk. Then she goes on about Epstein to correct Trump. Trump has claimed, writes the author, without evidence that Bill Clinton visited Epstein's infamous private island, Little St. James, supposedly 28 times. Quote, to Susie Wiles, quote, being quoted. There is no evidence those visits happened. Quote, the president was wrong about that. And then here's the part about J.D. Vance. The people that really appreciated what a big deal this is are Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, she said, because they lived in that world. And the vice president, who's been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. And we go from there. Okay, I mean, like, so she's called J.D. Vance a conspiracy theorist.
I already like J.D. She doesn't need to convince me, man.
I don't know. So what is happening here? Do you think Susie Wiles, who's she's Wiley, she's very clever. She has universally good reviews of what a smart, savvy person she is, that she just got had by the author of this, or what?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is there's never been a chief of staff for President Trump in either his first term or anywhere around him, really, who can get into this situation where immediately the entirety of the organization circles the wagons around. And that's what you saw all morning this morning, which was everybody from Don Jr. to the vice president and Mark, everybody's sort of saying like she's the best and shut this down. What gave rise to all of it? I don't know entirely why, you do 11 sit downs with Vanity Fair when they have a pretty private, internal dialogue about an awful lot of this stuff. But if you remove, at least from my perspective, if you remove like the left-wing fanaticism in terms of the framing, and you remove just the kind of hyperbolic soap opera like working that Vanity Fair is doing, there's some really interesting stuff in there. Like the USAID thing is fascinating. We talked about it a lot, Megyn, on your show and on ours, about like, is everybody on the same page with some of this stuff? Because it feels like everybody's sort of in a different place, and Elon was sort of marching forward, and we I think had broad agreement about the goals, but like to see that there was some internal discussion about that, like that's valuable news information, right? That's the kind of thing you lead an article about, And so, there's a couple of different pieces of this, and you mentioned the ballroom, but that are newsworthy and interesting and probably good for the public to sort of understand and get underneath the hood, but it's completely masked by this effort to make her look bad, the administration look bad, Republicans look bad, and in chaos, which, according to the Trump administration, they're not having it today.
Let me give you a couple more pieces of bias that are obvious on the pages of this profile. They're talking about RFKJ, and he writes that in Wiles's view, RFK Jr.'s shock treatment of HHS is warranted. Great. He pushes the envelope. Some would say too far, but I say in order to get back to the middle, you have to push it too far. Okay, we like that. But then here's what the author adds. In December, Kennedy's federal vaccine panel voted to end the decades-long recommendation for newborn vaccinations against hepatitis B, which is highly infectious and causes liver failure.
So,
period. None of the reasons why they said you don't have to get that for your baby if you don't want, and the mother isn't Hep B positive or has an unknown status of Hep B. That none of well, there's aluminum in the vaccines. Well, there are too many. Well, maybe we're giving these kids a sexually transmitted disease vaccination a little early in life. Some parents where the mother doesn't have the disease might wait until we give like the HPV vaccine, which is like 12, assuming that kids might become sexually active sometime in their teens and you want to get ahead of it. None of that's in there. Just it's a highly infectious disease and it causes liver failure.
Yeah, so that particular thing is very infuriating for me. I've talked to a lot of folks about this one specifically, especially those who work in healthcare. The hepatitis B vaccine for expectant mothers and for newborns was specifically for mothers who are prostitutes and are at high risk for STDs and babies who may be exposed to those STDs because their mothers are prostitutes.
Or intravenous drug use, right?
And so they figured, why not give this to every American instead of the small group of people who are doing heroin and are prostitutes? That seems like, yes, HHS has absolutely gone way too far. That specific vaccine, you talk to the number of mothers who are outraged that they were not told that information, that this is specifically has been designed for mothers who are at risk because they're prostitutes or they're taking heroin. It's unbelievable. And kudos to RFK Jr. for getting on top of that.
Well, because two things could be true. Like you could say, I believe in the efficacy of the Hep B vaccine. And you can also say, maybe it's not necessary my newborn gets it immediately.
Totally unnecessary.
Right? Like, in the nuance of that, you lose it, right? Because no left-wing reporter wants to talk about that because that's way too complicated. You're either pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine.
Yeah.
But what these...
And you know what they were basically trying to do with the Hep B vaccine? They were trying to do what they were doing with all of us on the COVID vaccine, which is try to get some sort of herd immunity so that nobody would have Hep B. And they wanted to use your baby to make sure that was the case. But then some of the studies showed that Hep B vaccine that you've given to your baby actually doesn't last. It's not a lifetime vaccine. So by the time, we're saying like with the HPV, they give it to 12-year-olds because let's face it, in some countries, whatever, sadly, some kids get active very early. But the thing with the Hep B vaccine is over the course of decades, it doesn't last. So by the time the average person gets sexually active, which is probably more like college age, it might not even be working. So there's really no reason to be giving it to a baby who wasn't born to an Hep B positive mother. None whatsoever. And yet RFKJ still says, if you want to get it for your baby, you can. We're just not like, we just want you to know you don't have to. This shouldn't be on like the we really recommend you do this for people who are perfectly healthy.
Yeah, and I think, Megyn, what you were just talking about, what these fellows were just talking about, and the lack of critical context in stories like this over the last few decades has led to an inflection point in media that you're living through, that we're living through, that will continue. In that, the media used to write the first draft of history, and today it's written by those who are making it. And that's why this story doesn't bother me at all, because I know what Susie Wiles has done for this last year. She has brought order to a second term that did not exist in the first term. And that's what everybody has watched with their own eyes. They don't need to read 35 pages from a guy in Vanity Fair. And you know what? He's a good writer. He's talked to a bunch of chiefs of staff in the past. She's a chief of staff. She's a history maker. What does she have to be afraid of talking to the guy? So he lies about her in some story that's 35 pages long. Okay, she knows what the truth is, and so does everybody else. And this guy is as talented as he is and as widespread as Vanity Fair is. He doesn't write the truth about Susie Wiles because she is making something very special happen in the White House, and nothing can change that.
Yeah, it's like
I agree with everything you said, and I admire her, but I don't see what the upside of this was. Like the photography alone evidences the hatred that this magazine has for all of the Trump administration. I'm going to show you a couple of the up-close photos. You pose for a photo for Vanity Fair, a headshot. I think the common understanding would be that you're going to get a three-quarter, like a top third of your body, portrait, like from the chest up. Look at Susie Wiles. Can you see this on your monitor? Yeah. It's worse than a mugshot. It's even in the mugshot, they give you a little bit of collarbone. For the listening audience, it's literally from her chin up to her forehead in a facial expression that where she looks like shocked. It does look mugshotty. It's not flattering. And she actually is a beautiful woman. You can easily get a good shot of Susie Wiles. Look at Caroline Leavitt. Stand by.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That is Caroline Leavitt. I'm sorry, but it's such an extreme close-up. It doesn't even look like her. You can't even tell it's her,
No.
but it is.
Yeah.
It's her, but you can see the little needles from where she clearly had her lips done, which is something a lot of women do. But that is 100% by design.
Yeah,
they wanted to embarrass her. Like, fuck you. So she, you know what? I don't get my lips done, but I do get a bunch of needles in my face so they can inject a bunch of botulism in there and poison my forehead muscles.
I think
I don't think I'd appreciate it if that were close up on camera in Vanity Fair.
Megyn, my kids would call that a 0.5. And everybody is doing a 0.5 picture of their friends, and everybody sees each other's friends in it like a less than favorable light.
The setting on your phone.
Yeah, it is. It's a setting on your phone.
Up with that now, Megyn? Like he's trying to teach us all this stuff.
Paul over here.
What I'm telling you is that Vanity Fair can throw their absolute worst at Caroline Leavitt and at Susie Wiles, and they are going to go to work today and impress everybody in the country. The 77 million people who voted for President Trump are well served by people like them.
Yeah, I just kind of think it doesn't matter anymore.
I don't think it does either.
I mean, a story like this, like...
How do I get the little numbers to show up?
Yeah, you got her on her phone now.
I'll FaceTime my daughter.
How do I... Aspect?
Careful with that. You don't want to take a lot of direction from Ashbrook about using your phone, Megyn.
Nothing's happening. I'm just getting the reverse, like the normal selfie. But I have seen that little number on there where you can decide.
It's called a 0.5.
It's just going to end in a regrettable place, I'm afraid.
I don't get it. Sorry. I tried, but I am listening to you. But the 0.5 is not flattering. Look at J.D. Vance. Look at him. I mean, J.D. Vance is pretty much by anybody's measure a handsome man. Yeah. Look at this. Yeah. Looks like a serial killer. Yeah. Like, what is it? Like with the furrowed brows and no smile. He's always smiling. But no, this
I think that's a good shot.
Reminded me.
Smug loves it.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, honestly, I've seen him in so many memes at this point. Like, I just see his face everywhere.
Yeah, usually they add 100 pounds.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
I mean, he doesn't have a Jerry curl.
But look, this reminds me of what they did to Ann Coulter on the cover of Time magazine, which we pulled too, where they made her look absurd. And Ann Coulter, too, is a beautiful woman. And yet, look what they did to her. And by the way, she's statuesque. Like, she's very tall, very lean, something most people would like to be. And they shot her sitting down in this chair with her legs crossed, where they look totally disproportionate to her body, trying to humiliate her. Like, not to mention, this happened to Sarah Palin when she was running as McCain's running mate. Like, it's very dicey for a conservative to sit for a photo shoot with a magazine that hates them. You really are taking a risk. And I feel bad for the administration because I think they probably trusted Susie that we're going to cooperate with Vanity Fair. We're going to be happy with how this turns out. And there is no way anybody is happy with how this article turned out.
Hey, Megyn, I have a question for you because I agree 100% that like the left and the journos on the left, they save their most visceral hatred for conservative women.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if like you've ever felt that way in something that's covered you.
Oh, I mean, many times. I mean, just any day of the week, pick up the Daily Beast and you'll see yet another hit piece on me saying like, I should be canceled. My career should be over. How'd that work out for you, Daily Beast? Anyway, it's like you just get used to it.
Yeah.
So I am of the mind that if you willingly go into the belly of the beast, like I sat with the New York Times 6 months ago, whenever that was, you got to be ready. You've got to like fight. You know, you've got to make sure when they're bringing you to the thin ice, you know you're there and you don't just sink. Like, make sure you get your points in and ideally record it yourself so that you can fight back if the piece drops, and think about what the point of doing it is. You know, like,
yeah, that's right.
I sat with the New York Times because I actually thought it would be valuable for their listeners, their readers, to hear what I had to say about the Times and the state of media. Like, I actually thought they should listen to me. I can explain a few things to them about why they're so clueless on things like Joe Biden's mental acuity. But you have to do it eyes open and not thinking this is going to be a nice piece. Here's one more. This biased writer. He writes about how the deportations, many who they've grabbed in these raids have been U.S. citizens or were entitled to be here. Not long after the El Salvador deportation fiasco, in Louisiana, ICE agents arrested and deported two mothers, along with their children, ages 7, 4, and 2, to Honduras. The children were U.S. citizens, and the 4-year-old was being treated for cancer. Wiles couldn't explain it. Well, I can. The mothers were illegal. Yep. And they said to the mothers, you got to go. Do you want your kids to stay here with a relative, or do you want them to go with you? And the mother said, with me. That's what happened. I'm sorry that the mothers were illegal, but they were. Mm-hmm. You don't get to stay just because you took advantage of birthright citizenship here and you happen to have an American baby. That's not how it works. So anyway, not a fair author, not a fair piece. I got to take a quick break, and there's a lot more coming up on the other side with the fellas after this. You know how every family has got that one holiday cooking disaster story? Some of us may have more than one, multiple over the years. Well, if that's the case, you could have used Chef IQ. Where were you, Chef IQ, when I needed you? Chef IQ Sense is the wireless cooking thermometer that takes all the guesswork out of holiday meals. Your roast, turkey, or prime rib comes out perfect every time, turning the I think it's done quandary into I know it's perfect. It even tells you when to flip, when to take it off the heat, and how long to let it rest. Basically, it's like having a personal chef right in your kitchen. With Chef IQ, you can sip your cocoa and actually spend time with your family instead of hovering over the oven. It's the gift everyone will love. Perfect for seasoned cooks, kitchen rookies, and everyone in between. This season, give yourself and your loved ones the gift of perfectly cooked meals with Chef IQ. And with our promo code MK, you can save 30% and get all of your shopping done. Go to chefiq.com, promo code MK, chefiq.com. Okay, guys, let's talk about the latest in the Rob Reiner murder, the horrific double murder in which the couple's son, Nick, is in custody. This time yesterday, bail had been set at $4 million, and we criticized that on this show, saying that's not going to do it. And sure enough, bail was revoked. There is no bail set for him. He needs to remain in custody, where now they are reporting, TMZ, that he is on suicide watch and in an administrative segregation, they call it, at Twin Towers Correctional Facility in L.A. The night before his parents were murdered, Saturday night this past, Nick got into a very loud argument with his father at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. The shouting match was loud enough that many others could hear it. That Rob and his wife, Nick's mother, Michelle, then left the party. We do not know if Nick left with them, reports TMZ. A source at the party told us Nick looked out of place at the party, mostly keeping to himself. And there was more on that in today's reporting. Then this just broke. Hold on before I move on to this. So there's so much to tell you. Stand by. Let's see. Fox News Digital reporting Nick Reiner was, quote, not medically cleared to appear in court today, which he was supposed to do. His lawyer, Alan Jackson, that's the guy who represented Karen Reed and got an acquittal for her. He's got a much tougher battle on this one, right? Saying, quote, he is not medically cleared to be transported to the court. That's an obvious reference to his mental health. Nick, 32, did not appear before a judge on Tuesday, the first time he was scheduled to appear since the bodies of Rob and Michelle were discovered. Tuesday's hearing was postponed for another date. Now there's reporting about what happened at his hotel room, how those who checked him in said they didn't see blood all over him or cuts on him. There was nothing obviously wrong with him. But when the police made their way over to his hotel, they found a lot of blood on early Sunday morning in Santa Monica. He was staying at a place called the Pierside, and he checked in around 4 a.m. Sunday. So the murder apparently was already done using his credit card. His check-in came hours after the heated argument at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. Eyewitnesses said he did seem tweaked out when he checked in, but no visible signs he'd been in a violent confrontation, no blood stains or cuts on his body. The reservation was made for just one day, but he never formally checked out. When the staff came into his room later Sunday morning, they found the shower full of blood on the bed. The window in the room was covered by bed sheets, and the cops eventually went and gathered evidence there. The report on the argument at Conan's party, many people noticed he was behaving strangely. He was, quote, freaking everyone out, acting crazy. He kept asking people if they were famous, a source told People magazine. Per TMZ, after Rob Reiner and Nick got into a, quote, very loud argument, the director and Michelle left. That his behavior at Conan's house alarmed the guests because it was so bizarre. One of the guests recalled Rob Reiner telling his son his behavior was inappropriate. Nick Reiner's behavior looked anxious. He looked uncomfortable in a way that deeply unsettled one guest and another attendee. So then you have this from Billy Bush, who of course is a great entertainment reporter in particular, weighing in on the fact that Romy Reiner, who is I think only 19 or 20, she's the one who found her parents with their throats slit.
It's awful.
And bodies stabbed multiple times. And there's new information in this soundbite. Listen here from Billy Bush.
I got this from a friend who lives in the community. I heard that the son, Nick, went into his parents' house, stabbed both mom and dad, and that the daughter, I guess, lives on the property or at the house or in the back house, and that she found them, and that the mom was still alive, and apparently she called the ambulance and went in the ambulance with her mother. Michelle died in the ambulance, but had enough time to tell her daughter that it was Nick, their son, who stabbed them, and that's why they figured it out so quickly, and he's in custody.
My God.
Yeah.
Romy's 28, FYI, but that's a critical piece of the prosecution's case right there, you guys. If it's called a dying declaration, it comes into court, even though it's hearsay because it's an out-of-court statement by someone. But a dying declaration comes in over hearsay objections. So if Romy Reiner is actually going to take the stand and repeat that her mother told her as she lay dying that it was Romy's brother, Nick, oh my God, he's toast. And what a tragedy all around. Thoughts on these latest developments, guys?
Totally. Horrific tragedy, obviously. And another good reminder that nobody is immune to the terrors of drug abuse. And, you know, anybody who's followed this story has known the troubles that Nick, his son, had for decades. They made a movie about it back in 2015 where the whole Reiner family was sort of involved in trying to get Nick to tell his story. And there's a vignette, I think it was like a Hollywood Reporter or something today, wrote about how this reporter who was then at the LA Times was basically begged by Reiner to cover this story because he was trying to show that his son has got a better life here and they're doing this together, and what was a troubled relationship is now moving forward. And he had his own, as a reporter, his own hesitations about all of that. It's an interesting...
This is the piece in the Hollywood Reporter by Stephen Zeitchik.
That's it.
Is that the one?
That's it.
Holmes, yeah, I've got it. And we'll go through it a little bit of detail. Keep going.
I found it fascinating. But I also think, like, look, Reiner, he's an icon. You don't have to agree or disagree with his politics to understand the impact that he had on movies, on films that we all grew up with, both comedy and drama and all these kind of things. And so it is sort of shocking as a person in the public, you see something like this happen to. But I think it is a reminder that we've got to take these kind of things seriously.
And a reminder, I think, of like you can be born into every privilege in the world, and drug addiction can still bring you down.
Yep.
And that's the scary thing, because there are so many Americans who struggle with this that don't have all of the resources of a Reiner family, which only really does
rehab like 20 times.
Right, which only really does emphasize how destructive this is to life of a family.
I mean, I have to say, I read a report on page 6 of the New York Post today that brought up a quote from Nick Reiner from a few years back, where he admits that he lost his virginity at age 14 to a prostitute. Only now you're supposed to call them sex workers, whatever. He called, the report is that he called a sex worker to come over for $200 and lost his virginity to her. And that he got the idea, reports the Post, from someone he met who was also in some like post-rehab. Like they met in rehab and now they were both post-rehab. I thought he only went to rehab for the first time when he was 15. This would put it even earlier at age 14. And I'm sorry, like I do have to ask, how does a 14-year-old get so addicted to drugs that at least at 14 or 15, they already have to go into rehab, and they're calling sex workers to come to the house in the middle of the night. He said he borrowed the money from his parents without telling them what it was for. I just have to ask, because I'd like to believe that if any of these behaviors were happening in my home, I would know, because I am also a very busy professional, but I have a very close eye on my children. I'm not blaming Michelle and Rob, but I do think we have to be honest about the fact that this level of drug addiction at this young an age may involve parents who were focused on the wrong thing, like careers instead of their kid. And while it looks like Michelle and Rob did everything within their power once they realized their kid was an addict to try to help him, that's not good enough. You have to head it off at the pass. You have to be totally attuned to your child's behaviors before that demon gets a hold of him.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. I mean, look, he's a deeply troubled young man, obviously, and drug addiction probably did the paddling on that, but there's probably some psychological issues there too. I also think like you don't know what the lifestyle was like. I mean, you watch the Charlie Sheen documentary to find out what it's like to be young and rich in Hollywood.
Well,
the
Hollywood component of this is what I would say is like, don't raise your kids around Hollywood. I think this is a degenerate place that's full of drugs and prostitution and manipulating young people. And I just can't imagine having to raise a young family in that environment, even if you are involved in movies and film and that sort of thing. I feel like that is the main factor in this, is just that town and how terrible it is.
Make me sound like a provincial bumpkin or something, but like under no circumstance would I ever raise a family in Los Angeles. Like you never hear any story of like, my kids started a lemonade stand when they were kids and they're completely normal now. We live in Brentwood. Like you never heard that story.
Right.
It's true.
But it's also interesting in that at least in recent years, since 2015, they did an enormous amount of things as a family. Mm-hmm. And I think it was, it seems from the outside looking in, I don't have any firsthand knowledge, but it looks to me like they were trying, the four of them with, was it Romy was the daughter's name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To basically just try
there's another brother too.
Yeah. It will just try to will their way through this whole thing. And like, look, this is a good example. He's at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. I can't imagine that Conan O'Brien was like, hey, I definitely want Nick there. But like
they brought him.
They brought him, right? And so if you see all of this over the last few years where he's just a part of every picture, like they were at a Spinal Tap 2 September premiere that he was at. Now, did he have anything to do with it? No, but he's a part of the family. They were trying to will their way through it. I think to your point, Megyn, maybe he's too far gone, obviously, at this point. But it's about the lifestyle, and it's about I can't blame them.
Also,
but this is a horrible tragedy.
But it's not about blame. I'm not blaming them either. I have nothing but empathy for Rob and Michelle. God rest them. But I do think we all, as parents, we have to take an honest look at where did this thing go sideways? Because yesterday we talked a lot about the yoga instructor who Michelle and Rob brought in to teach young Nick yoga when I think he was as young as 10, because his behavior was so strange. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was on drugs at age 10. There's something off about it. I think this kid had a mental health issue from a very young age, according to the yoga instructor, who said he would like scream at that age when he wasn't getting the attention he needed. So I think drugs were sort of a way of addressing what was probably a previous mental health issue. But I also really think, especially if you've got a kid who is going to be special needs like that, I would get out of a place like Hollywood. I keep thinking of Matthew McConaughey, who came on this show. He's from Texas. He was making it big in Hollywood. And he and his wife, who's a successful model, I can't remember if she's also an actress, but model for sure. They were like, we're out of here. And they went back to Texas, and they have raised good kids. And his son is actually getting into acting now, but seems very together by all rights. But as an adult, as like an 18 or 19-year-old.
Yeah.
But they raised their kids in Texas because they did not want anything like this to happen to them. And he also put limits on his career, like how much he'd be away from his family. He brought his family. He brought his wife with him. You know, like even the, oh God, who was I just reading about? It was, I think it's Ed Burns and Christy Turlington, who have a rule that they won't be away from each other for more than 2 weeks. And their marriage has lasted. Like there are like the people who make sure like the kids are protected, notwithstanding the huge trappings of wealth, success, and the fast lane that is Hollywood, tend to do a lot better. So it's not a question of blame. It's just a question of how do we not raise a kid like Nick Reiner? That's frankly what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and a series of choices, some which may be very difficult from a career perspective, but choices that an understanding that the most precious commodity you have in your family are your kids. And the rest of it doesn't matter. If it all ended tomorrow, that's the only thing that you focus on. And I think moms and dads, healthy moms and dads understand that innately, but I think as a culture, we need to embrace that a lot more.
The article you mentioned, Holmes, is like chilling.
It is.
So I want to go through it a bit because it's worth it. As mentioned, it's in the Hollywood Reporter. It's by Steven Zeitchik, and it is subtitled, well, it's titled, I Sat Down to Dinner with Rob, Michelle, and Nick Reiner. It was heartwarming and jarring. So he writes about a dinner he had in Toronto with them at a restaurant 10 years ago. And I'm just going to pull out a couple of highlights here. We sat in a corner table. We talked about what it meant to be part of a family with a serious addict, to be a parent, to be a sibling, to be the addict themselves. The meal was a decade ago, but alive in front of me. Directed by Rob and co-written by Nick, Being Charlie, they were there to promote their movie that they did together, which we discussed yesterday. Focuses on David, an accomplished actor now running for governor, clearly a Rob Reiner stand-in, and his drug-addicted son, who feels like he's being pushed hard to get clean so as not to be an embarrassment to his famous father, clearly a stand-in for Nick. Nick was sober now, the Reiner said, and after some 18 trips to rehab since his teenage years, some of which he spent on the streets. This movie was going to provide the happy ending to all that sadness. Can you believe this boy? Rob said as we sat down, beaming. Nick smiled uncomfortably, saying nothing. From the start, a kind of fatherly pushing was evident. Rob wanted this story told, wanted, not surprisingly for a man steeped in show business, for the movie to succeed where therapy had failed. But he also genuinely felt pride. Nachas, as he said, using the Yiddish word for parental joy. Nick seemed less game. A little almost like he didn't want to fully be there. He goes on to say, it was tough at first to think, am I actually going to do this? Nick said after I prodded a little, quote, I really wasn't sure if I wanted to do this. Am I really going to get it out there? Rob jumped in. That's part of being a creative person. You express it. You get it out there. The director looked lovingly at his wife. Everybody's so open, and it's because of Michelle. Everybody is, she said, looking back at her husband, but we didn't set out to do a public good. We had to do it for each other. We ordered, and Nick explained the ineffectiveness of rehab for him. I just couldn't get by in these programs. I had resistance every time they tried to reach me. The elder Reiners described their own misgivings. The program works for some people, but it can't for everyone, said Rob. When Nick would tell us it wasn't working for him, we wouldn't listen. We were desperate, and because the people had diplomas on their wall, we listened to them when we should have been listening to our son. I looked at Romy, who was also there, the Reiner's daughter. How did she feel? This is my best friend, and I was there for all of it, she said, gesturing to her brother, 2 years older. It's weird but good to see it on screen, she said. She struck me as someone deeply admiring of her brother, but also perhaps a little tired of explaining his behavior to her parents, to everyone. Rob, who'd been eating, put down his fork. What got us through is 2 books, Tweaked and Beautiful Boy, citing addiction memoirs. Something poignant, even sad, abided. Unable to access the mind of his own son, he turned to the words of strangers to let him in. And then just a couple more. For all the talk about catharsis and success, something felt unsuccessful. I later checked in with their publicist. She thought everything was fine, but it didn't feel fine. It felt like things were better, but far from resolved. Like the last pile of living room mess before company arrives. The family at dinner turned its attention to a line Rob insisted make it into the film. Quote, I'd rather have you alive and hating me than dead on the streets. Rob really, really wanted it in. It explained his actions, justified them, even though he was now apologizing for thinking that way, for being so hard on his son. I looked at Nick. He didn't seem so happy to have that line in the film. It was perhaps too excusing of the kind of parental pushing he didn't want to excuse. The proposition was also based on a flawed assumption. Hate did not automatically mean recovery. I asked Nick what he thought. What could his father have done? But Nick had no answer. Not at a dinner, maybe not ever. Maybe there was nothing Rob could do. Maybe the whole movie, I thought, was Rob coming to terms with that inescapable fact. And all the cheer and the pride, well earned as it was, could simply not illuminate that darker, more severe reality. Man, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
He had done everything he could do to help his son. He had even set in motion the Hollywood machine to help his son. And yet there was nothing he could do to fully help his son. Some things are beyond our greatest effort.
That's heartbreaking.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough because as a parent,
It feels so right.
well, as a parent, you know, everybody runs into this at some point with a child where you want to will things to be true, right? That you think you can command things to happen, and you can't. And the most insecure you'll feel, the most vulnerable you'll feel as a parent is knowing there are some things that are outside of your control.
Totally.
You know, which is terrifying.
Yeah. This is obviously just a confluence of events, right? That started at a young age. But, you know, Rob Reiner didn't give up. I mean, he kept going. It ended in absolute tragedy. But, I mean, the effort was clearly that you can see it. And that piece, by the way, beautifully written, and I think just got to the absolute heart of the issue, is that they were willing something to happen that was not going to happen.
And they knew it at some level. Rob Reiner knew it, and so did Nick, and probably Michelle and Romy and Jake, the other brother, too. But even when you see these clips of them promoting that movie, some of which we played yesterday, they don't seem close. There does seem to be a lot of damage between them. They do seem almost like he writes trying to will this into existence. Like, this is our happy ending. And the bit about using the Hollywood machine, that's a tool that Rob Reiner was very familiar with, that he used all his life to bring stories to us, to bring healing to other people in some instances, like Stand By Me, and try to use it on his own family, you know, like the power of putting something cathartic on the big screen. He would help his son do that with his own story, but he knew, I think he knew. Here's more that I wanted to get to. He writes, okay. Hold on. Okay. Speaking of Rob, he turned back to the table. It was very hard. The number one job of any parent is to keep their child safe. And I hadn't done that. He was almost tearing up. And now here, I have done that. I kept him safe. He came out alive. And the writer adds, here in 2025, the words kept ricocheting through my brain. Yes, Nick had come out alive. It was Rob that hadn't. Oh, my God.
Tough. Man, oh, man. Tough.
The final bit reads as follows. Reiner was all about sorting through the complexity of parents and offspring and coming out okay on the other side. He's the one who taught us how hard it was, but that we could get through it just as he did with his own famous father, with whom he had bonded over baseball. He just couldn't enact the lesson with his own son. At the dinner, we pushed back our chairs and stood up. Rob looked at me. He took my hand and clasped it. Thank you, Steve. Perhaps I imagined it, but in his eyes I saw a pleading, an ask, not to conceal anything, more the opposite. He wanted this story written in a way that willed the best outcome into being. Mm-hmm. I clasped his hand back as he held my gaze an extra twinkly, plaintive second. It was the last interaction we had. I still feel my palm squeezed. That business about he wanted the story written in a way that willed the best outcome into being. That's what I'm talking about, you guys. You know, that movie, like, that's what he was trying to do, to use the best and most familiar tool he had, movie making, to will that outcome into being. And one does wonder, like, now, as the son is clearly on suicide watch and now facing a massive legal trial, will he be able to use Rob Reiner's fortune to defend himself with this very fancy lawyer against charges that he killed his own dad? Did Rob and Michelle keep him in their will? So many parents who have a drug-addled child will remove the child from the will and tell the child that for their own preservation. And also the thought of poor Rob and Michelle in the moments right before they died, knowing it had come to this. They didn't die with a bullet to the back of the head. They knew. Clearly, if the Billy Bush reporting is right, Michelle knew and told. And then you would both know. And you get stabbed to death, you know exactly who's doing it.
And imagine being his sister at a time like this and having to live through this trial that's going to happen.
Talk about the actual victim here.
You know, I mean, it's the most horrific, unthinkable thing you'd have to deal with in life.
Yeah. It's almost Shakespearean in some way. I mean, this is a bizarre drama. I mean, look, I think if there's a piece, a silver lining, a productivity of a conversation that you can have publicly about any of this. We don't know the circumstances of any of their relationships with each other or what led him to drug abuse or, you know, if he was relapsing and back onto it. But spend time with your kids, you know? I mean, this is a perfect example.
Before it's too late.
Yeah. And do it early. Yeah. They've got to know you're there.
Now, like our kids are 16, 14, and 12. And we've been doing this their whole lives. But like have dinner with your children, ideally 7 nights a week.
Yep.
No, I'm not kidding.
Yep.
Don't commit them to a sport that makes that impossible. Like at least 5 nights a week, sit with them. Drive them to school, like spend the time. When they're my kids' ages, it gets harder and harder because their commitments get bigger and bigger and just their studying gets to the point where it's going to remove them from you for several hours. The dinners are a must. The breakfasts are a must. The weekend time is a must. You are more important than anything. Time with you, the parents, the family, more important than friends, more important than sports, more important than academics. Like there's so much pressure on these kids. This has to be prevented before the drug problem and the 15 or 18 rehabs. Like at that point, and I've talked to so many parents of like seriously drug-addled kids. I don't know how to say this without sounding really brutal, but like at that point, the kid becomes like a nightmare.
Somebody else.
Like you're saddled with them because they're yours. And they're not capable of supporting themselves and they're out there in society and you can't just say they're society's problem. You have some obligation to society to do something to protect society from them and make sure that they're not just, in a tent on the street that you walk past. But a lot of these parents know they're dangerous. They're actually, if not just suicidal, homicidal. And this is not Minority Report. You cannot have them arrested before they've committed a crime. And yet you know they're likely to, and you know your family may be the first victims. It's a nightmare. This has to be headed off early. And with mental illness, it's even far more complicated.
Oh, totally. And I'll say, I don't know how many of I imagine a fair number of your listeners know, but I mean, you really are a role model in this regard, you and Doug. And we've met your kids, well-adjusted young people who understand family dynamic and have access to their family. And, you know, we've looked at that and anybody in this line of work, there is always somebody asking for something. But for a lot of your listeners, it doesn't matter what line of work you're in, somebody's always asking for something. There's always something else you can do. And you have to rattle around the opportunity cost of each time you go to dinner or each time you go away, or what does this get me? What does it not? Just remember that whatever cost you've associated with your family, it is much higher.
Yes. It's just, I don't know. That's another problem with Hollywood is like as talented as Rob Reiner was and made so many movies that we all love. Now I look back and I wonder who paid the price for all the time he spent on those films that I loved. You know, where was Nick during those years? You know, how much time was he putting in at home? I'm not blaming him, but I think it's a fair inquiry to say all of us should be reminded now of the cost, the potential cost to not putting the hours in raising our kids. And while they seem to have done Herculean work later in life when they realized he was really struggling, It's really hard to stop that addiction train once it's started. So hard. I want to keep going, but I'm going to take a quick break. Not on Reiner, but I do want to get to what's happening at Brown University, you guys. It's going from bad to worse there. I'm sorry to use the overused Keystone thing, but it is starting to feel like Keystone Cops there with this mayor. Stand by. More with the fellas right after this. It's that time of year, and the clock is ticking. Want to give a gift they will really love? Luckily, there's still time to get your hands on Firecracker Farm Hot Salt. That's right, hot salt. You've heard the buzz because it's incredible. This small batch product is genuinely special and made with love. Delicious is an understatement. It has the perfect amount of heat and flavor and elevates everything you put it on. Plus, it comes in these sleek, laser-etched stainless steel push grinders. The presentation alone tells you someone cares about what they're doing here. They have a ton of different flavors, gift sets, and you'll be very happy to know you are supporting a small family business that is also now available at Black Rifle Coffee locations. But it's made in small batches, so when it's gone, it's gone. With Christmas right around the corner, they will sell out. To get the widest selection and score a discount, head on over to their website, firecracker.farm. Do yourself a favor and get your best gift shopping done today. That's firecracker.farm and use code MK at checkout for 10% off your order. If you could make one holiday wish, would you wish to be free from your credit card and other debt? Well, here's why now's the time to make a move. This time of year, credit card and loan companies close out their books. They clean up past due accounts, and they sell or write off debt. That means if you have credit card debt and unpaid bills, lenders may be more open to negotiating and settling your account before year end. You may actually have leverage, and Done With Debt knows how to use this to your advantage. They monitor lender trends and understand the year-end pressure on creditors, and they use that timing to negotiate hard on your behalf. Now's the time to get out from under-crushing debt and interest payments without bankruptcy or new loans. Done With Debt goes to work for you month one with one clear goal: to reduce your total debt and leave you with more money every month. Get started now. Chat for free with a Done With Debt specialist at donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. I want to go now to Brown University, where there is still a killer on the loose. And one does not take any comfort from what's happening with the local authorities. I want to give you what Mayor Brett Smiley said on an interview with Good Morning America. Hold on a second. Let's just make sure this is what he's talking about. He's talking about whether the suspect who was in custody, the person of interest, but then he got released. He's talking about whether that the person of interest has been fully cleared. Here he is on GMA. Watch this.
So you're absolutely convinced the person of interest had nothing to do with this?
We're not saying that definitively. What we're saying is that after a review of the evidence that was gathered, it was determined that the person of interest needed to be released.
Okay, so that's him yesterday morning saying we are not saying definitively that that person of interest is fully cleared. Later that day, yesterday, the Attorney General, this is the mayor, the Attorney General, Peter Nerona of Rhode Island, reiterated that the person who was detained and released yesterday is no longer a person of interest. Quote, he has been cleared. He has been cleared. But the mayor, when asked whether the suspect had been fully cleared, quote, we're not saying that. Indeed, you are saying that through your Attorney General, you idiot.
Yeah, no kidding.
How are they not on the same page with that, you guys?
I think it should be at least a conference call, right? Maybe just a heads up that we think something about this grisly situation.
Hey, I'm about to go on national television.
Yeah,
you know,
make sure to book the national television and then then give an answer that shitty.
Right. That's the problem with so many of these politicians. They're like, hey, this is my chance for fame, rather than here is a terrible thing that's happened in my community. I need to get to the bottom of it and let somebody else talk to the national press. You know what I mean? Like this is a terrible trend in our politics, and national media only feeds it. And I mean, who cared? Like the mayor on Good Morning America, the ratings aren't what they used to be on Good Morning America. The guy needs to do his job and help this community who he was elected to serve.
Yeah. No, the public only appreciates.
You know why he can't, Ashbrook? He explained why he can't do his job that easily. He's got some issues, and I think, hold on a second, I want to make sure. Here it is. Here are some of his issues. This is from a Monday afternoon presser, SOT 11.
Everyone you see behind us, we've all been working for now 49 hours. We're tired. We're serious about the task at hand. I know all of you have been working very hard, and I suspect all of you are just as tired.
Bro,
no one cares you're tired.
I would get up and let him have a piece of my mind. We got Mayor McCheese. Well, I mean, what's the population of this town? This guy thinks he's like the president. What are you talking about? You're tired. 49 hours? You don't even get your facts straight. What is your job, first of all? Like, what is the responsibilities you have? Because keeping your people safe and everyone on the same page, you haven't done that. I think that's like the basic job of any elected office, right? How did no one get up and just slap him?
Boy, they've slid a long way since Buddy Cianci, haven't they? Over there, Buddy would have had that guy cuffed and stuffed. The former Providence mayor.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you know the former mayor of Providence?
Oh, you this guy there.
Yeah, Buddy Cianci used to be a wonderful mob town.
Yeah, exactly.
Raymond Patriarca.
You got to get up on this. There's a Crime Town.
Oh.
Yeah, Crime Town. It's a good podcast.
It's a good podcast. You should check it out. But it examines the rule of Buddy Cianci.
It holds Italians accountable, but I don't think there's this one.
But of which I can promise you that in Buddy Cianci's Providence, none of this would be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we've got Mayor Smiley, who's super smiley and tired.
Joke.
Really tired. It's very hard to track down a killer. No one feels sorry for you. I don't know why on earth he would say such a thing, but yeah, he did say such a thing. And by the way, just in case you're feeling confident about the Attorney General, who apparently set the record straight by saying, oh, no, the guy's been cleared. We have moved on. He's the same Attorney General who put this woman on leave, but then kept employed his assistant attorney general named Devin Hogan Flanagan, who you may remember from a couple of months ago.
He's one of our favorites.
August, right? Who was boozing it up at a Newport restaurant, very drunk, and started to play the I'm an AG card. Here she is in SOT 12.
I want you to turn your body cam off. Protocol is that you turn it off. If a citizen requests it to turn it off, she's a lawyer.
So they want you guys to leave?
Yes, we're going.
Let's just leave. Let's just make it easy, okay?
We're going to make it easy. That's not.
You guys just want them out? Do you want them trespass?
Anything we can do. Trespass, yeah. I just need
Trespass, got them out.
Please.
So you're trespass, or we got to leave now? Unless you want to be in there.
We're not trespassing. You haven't notified us that we're trespassing. Number one.
What did I just say to you? You're trespassing. Let's go.
Number one.
I don't want to
two.
arrest you guys.
What did I just say?
You're not going to arrest us. Number two
So let's
is
leave.
that
We got to go. We got to go.
protocol
Let's
is
go. Let's
can we
go.
calm down for 1 second?
I think this is where she shows us the world.
So she knows.
Well, that's lawyer stuff, so that's not true. So we got to go.
No, it is. That's law. I'm an AG. I'm an AG.
Good for you. I don't give a shit. Let's
You're
go.
so fancy.
Good for you.
I'm glad you ended that clip where it got a little racy.
Is this the first time a Flanagan got too many Guinness deep and started trouble in Providence?
Now he's
resisting Saturday night.
lot of bashing of the Irish. All right, hold, slow your roll. There, smug.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's still gainfully employed, and for all we know, working on this case. Who the hell knows? Here's another one for you. This is Colonel Oscar Perez. What's his role in this? He was at the presser Monday afternoon. This is the police chief. And listen to this, because the reporter asked the question that we all want to know the answer to. We've all heard the reports about this shooter allegedly yelling Allahu Akbar before the shooting. Unconfirmed. The reporter phrases it a little differently, but listen to this non-answer. SOT 8.
Now, there's a report the shooter yelled something right before his shot came in. Could you tell us what that was?
Yeah, it's part of the investigation, Johnny. Yeah.
Now, the only reason I asked that, though, is, for instance, like with the Unabomber, his brother recognized the writing. So it's possible a friend or family member might recognize if the person said something that was significant.
Correct.
So that's why you don't, other than the 9mm, is there anything else inside that auditorium that you could tell us?
No, that's correct. Listen, like I said earlier, investigations will bring us to evidence that we need to collect in order to be able to prosecute. With that being said, we're going to continue to collect evidence, and if it leads us to something to that nature that's going to be extremely helpful.
I'm going to go ahead and say he didn't shout Merry Christmas. Okay,
I think that's probably
Yeah.
And
also, what is with that reporter somehow tying this to the Unabomber. like maybe we're going to discern something.
You don't have to justify
these two words the guy said.
He was extremely scared to ask the obvious question.
The obvious question. Did he say Allah Akbar?
We had 35
That's
years
right.
of terrorist attacks in this country since the Unabomber.
Yeah.
And it kind of had some
Right?
similarities. I don't know if anybody's paying attention.
But nor as a reporter do you have to justify your question, especially at a presser. We only get one shot. Just, did he yell what did he yell? There are reports it was Allahu Akbar. Can you confirm?
Right.
That's it. Get up and down on your question.
Yes.
Don't give me a history lesson. No one cares about Ted Kaczynski in this moment. We have a killer to find. My God, like the ineptitude. So now yesterday they did release additional pictures. They're going to other houses now because since apparently of the hundreds of security cameras across Brown University, they don't have one on this building.
Amazing.
And they don't have one showing the suspect in any way that's clear. So now they're going to area houses asking for like their ring cam video, and they've put out, let's air them. I mean, it's a little tough. All we know is this guy is husky. He's husky. And they're saying he might be around 5'8", and not a thin guy. Looks like an overeater.
Oh,
Doesn't
this
just
is
look
the
big bone
best
to
we
me.
have?
Yeah.
This is what your Ivy League
Yes.
tuition goes to? Let's hope the neighbors got
Yes.
ring cameras?
Boy, the civil libertarians know
Yes.
where to move, huh?
I mean, this is unbelievable.
Well,
this is unbelievable.
Right? How are we going to catch this guy like this, you guys? It's not like Luigi, where at least when he was on the run, remember he had gone to like that, this is the best one right here. Luigi had gone to like some soup kitchen or something, and he had pulled down his mask when he was looking at that girl.
Yeah.
And so we did have a picture of his face, which is how they found him in that McDonald's. This guy, so far, nothing. And here we are now. It's Tuesday. This happened Saturday. We don't know where he is. And the mayor is still saying everyone should send their kids to school. Would you send your kids to school this week in Providence, Rhode Island?
No.
I think I'd move out of Providence altogether if I saw that this was the extent of the law.
Yeah, I mean, Keystone Cops is right. That is,
Look at this.
This is unbelievable.
Look, you guys. Look at this.
I mean,
This is what we're getting from the local authorities.
I couldn't believe they put that out. There is clearer pictures of Bigfoot than there are of that situation. No, seriously, look at it. It like
Looks
blends.
like a tree.
Yeah, it blends into the background. It literally, there is better evidence of Bigfoot than that.
You cannot see anything. This does not instill any sort of confidence whatsoever. It's like,
boy, the people of
if
Providence
they didn't have
deserve
cameras
better.
on Brown University, yeah, like why not? Why wouldn't you? Like, what are the crime fighting methods at the university? Like, I don't get it. I'm very concerned because no one knows where he's going next. No one knows whether there is a list. And then there's this reporting by our own Mark Halperin, who's part of the MK Media Network, who reported as follows. Watch this.
People are telling me that the family of Ella Cook, the Alabama young woman who was a sophomore, has been told that she was the target of what happened at Brown. I have no idea whether that's true. There's other theories about why the person did what they did, but now that we don't know who the assailant is, it's going to be harder to say.
He admits this is not something he would put in the New York Times if he worked there. He doesn't feel the reporting is shorn up to the level of like you'd put it in print in a major newspaper, although we can debate what the standards are at the New York Times. But in any event, he's saying that he is being told by a reliable source that that's what Ella Cook's family has been told. She was the vice president of the college Republicans on campus. The other man who was killed was a naturalized U.S. citizen from Uzbekistan who had dreams of becoming a neurosurgeon who, I mean, for what it's worth, appears to have brown skin and didn't match like the same profile as the young white Ella Cook, who was the college Republican. Just for what it's worth. I mean, there were many other people who were shot, but the reporting that Mark is getting is that Ella was the one who was targeted, and she and this other young man are the ones who were killed. It's just one of the many reasons why we need to find this guy, you guys, because of course, people, if this is some sort of a Republican targeting, no matter what kind of targeting it is, we need to know. It's bad enough if it's the worst case scenario, if it's targeting of young adults.
Yeah.
I mean, does that mean other universities need to be on alert? Schools need to be on alert? Again, I would not send my kids to public school or any school this week. Were we in Providence?
Yeah. Well, and there's also, I mean, what happened at Bondi Beach, the bust that happened out in California of that, I don't even know how you classify those psychopaths that were trying to bomb New Year's Eve.
Oh, the Turtle Island Liberation Front or whatever?
And this all within a 48-hour period. Like, I don't know. I mean, did I read that there is some kind of a strained relationship there between the local law enforcement and the FBI on this too? Because, I mean, it strikes me as...
They're pointing fingers at each other.
Right.
The FBI definitely wants you to know that this is being handled locally and that the FBI is just in an assisting, supportive role. And the locals were very sure to tell us that it was the FBI who told them the guy in the hotel is indeed a person of interest and that its cell phone analysis unit had zeroed in on him. So there's definitely one of these things going where they're each pointing at each other.
Yeah, I mean, look, at a time like this, I don't think that's acceptable at all. I mean, this is all hands on deck situation.
Also, I don't want to black pill on this, but let's say it is a Republican who's targeted, and let's say it is radical left-wing violence. Are we going to get any justice? Are we going to get any results from that? Has there been any nationwide crackdown on Antifa? If you're out there hunting and hurting Republicans, have you felt justice? Or are you allowed back on the streets? Are you celebrated? It's ridiculous. You know, like, when is there going to be consequences for targeting Republicans, for killing conservatives, for attacking them? When's there going to be consequences? When's there going to be the crackdown? Because I remember under Biden, doors were getting kicked in if you're a conservative. If you're a granny on Facebook, your door's getting kicked in.
Yeah, a parent at a teacher.
Yeah, the FBI was tracking conservative moms who show up to PTA meetings as radicalized troublemakers. But you're out there shooting or killing Republicans?
Honestly, if Ella Cook was targeted and they know that and they're not releasing that, they're endangering us all.
They are.
Like right now.
Totally.
If that is a fact that they know. Same thing with the Allahu Akbar. If this was somehow, Muslim violence for, inspired by radical Islam, we need to know that. Like, what? I don't trust these Providence, Rhode Island leftists to tell us all the relevant information. And there's a killer on the loose right now. This just came in for CNN. Providence police say they'll release at least one additional image of the person of interest seen in the surveillance video soon. A spokesman for the Rhode Island AG telling CNN that there is a, quote, an enhanced photo that would be distributed on Tuesday. They anticipate footage will be released later. Picture first, later than footage. Shifting gears. And by the way, I think we're at 4 p.m. At 4 p.m., we're getting an update out of California on Nick Reiner and the status. Again, we began that segment by noting they said he was not physically capable of showing up at the court appearance. Now there's two breaking pieces of news, unrelated, we think. President Trump just released that he is going to address the nation tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. All he writes is, my fellow Americans, I'll be giving an address to the nation tomorrow night, live from the White House at 9 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to, quote, seeing you then. It has been a great year for our country, and the best is yet to come. President Donald J. Trump. No idea what that's about. And last but not least, J.D. Vance, who was just giving some public remarks, was asked the first question about whether he is a conspiracy theorist, referencing that piece in Vanity Fair. Here's his answer.
That White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave to Vanity Fair, in which she's quoted as referring to you as, excuse me, and again, not my words, sir, but a conspiracy theorist of a decade. And
sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true.
Hell yeah.
And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic. I believed in this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job. And I believed in the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was trying to throw his political opponents in jail rather than win an argument against his political opponents. So, at least on some of these conspiracy theories, it turns out that a conspiracy theory is just something that was true 6 months before the media admitted it. And that's my understanding.
Flawless.
Mic drop.
So good.
Just fantastic.
Boom.
Yeah. It's the kind of common sense you get in Middletown, Ohio.
Oh, here we go.
And our nation will benefit from more of it.
That crack.
That's why he's 48. That's why we call him 48. So good.
So good.
Took it on head on. Didn't shy away from it, turned it into a positive. Like, he just completely neutralized it, right? And not that Susie Wiles, I think, meant to hurt him, but of course, Vanity Fair did.
Yeah. I mean, that crack you hear is the barrel of the bat. And that is what he does. But it's also why I don't think this piece does any damage beyond the, 48 hours where everybody in D.C. sort of fumbles around with their accusations, is because the commentary, almost all of it, is relatable internally in the way that they interact with each other, which is the only thing that matters. The design of that piece was to try to pull them apart. And that is clearly not happening.
Why do we think Trump is addressing the nation tomorrow night?
I think what happens, we did this in Congress a lot, and I think this is what he's doing now, is you want to do a year-in review. And I think it's more important now. And I think that's what that's about. I don't know, but
I would guess.
But
that's my guess.
It's more important now than ever when you've got a Democratic Party that woke up from ruining our economy over 4 years and all of a sudden have concerns about affordability. You might want to reset the dial on that and reset the narrative going into 2026.
Yeah. The tone of that Truth Social post would suggest it's something upbeat. It wasn't somber. Guys, what a pleasure to see you again. It's been too long. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to see you, Megyn.
Thanks so much.
Merry
Always
Christmas.
fun.
Merry Christmas.
Lots of love. Merry Christmas. Yeah, to you too. And Happy New Year. And we are back tomorrow with Kelly's Court and more.